Good evening. Welcome to the West Newbury Board of Selectmen meeting, Monday, September 16th. First off, we have an unbelievably big agenda tonight, so we're going to try and get through so we can see some of the football game, and that would be Thursday night football. And so I'd like everyone to, whatever you're here for, to keep your comments as brief as possible. We'll try and keep ours as brief as possible tonight. We want everyone to speak their mind, but just brevity is the soul of wit. So with that note, this meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. Essex County Creates calendar. There is a Arts and Culture Summit, September 27th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Beverly. There are an additional announcement. There are some FY20 West Newbury committee appointments. They can be people, volunteer opportunities. You can look for that at on the Board of Selectmen webpage. The FY Senior Tax Work-Off Program. Interested residents, please contact Teresa Woodbury at the Council on Aging, and this is open to all West Newbury residents. There is no income restriction on that. People can give some time to working in the town hall and take some money off of their real estate taxes. A couple of other announcements. On next Monday at 7 p.m., there'll be a joint meeting with us and the City of Newburyport to discuss the Middle Street Bridge. We want to have public input on the bridge. We're going to present designs. The people can make their comments on the designs. I think this is very important. And we want to get public input on this big project that we hope to get done. A couple of announcements. I'll let Angus handle these related to whether there's going to be any additional spraying for mosquitoes and the results of testing for blue-green algae in the middle pond.
Board of Health has advised late last week, probably people saw the notice that there have been triple E found in mosquitoes here in West Newbury. I did hear from the health agent on Friday that there have been no new pools of triple E detected in the area. Mosquitoes continue to be collected and sent to the lab for testing until the 2nd of October. Residents need to be aware that triple E risk will remain until after the first heavy frost. The mosquito population is decreasing due to the cooler temperatures, but still exercise caution, bug spray, and so forth. And secondly, there had been concern about blue-green algae down at Mill Ponds, and the way that works is you need 2 consecutive tests to come in below the guidelines. We did get the first test we had a private lab do, then we had the Commonwealth Department of Public Health came out, did their own test. Both have come back negative. So the precautionary notices have been removed. And it's unlikely at this time of year that the levels of cyanobacteria or blue-green algae would increase. But again, visitors to the pond should remain vigilant on the potential risks.
Thank you. Our first item on the agenda is from the Bicentennial Committee. Yeah, everyone should come up for some recognition for all your hard work.
Yes. So, at the opening ceremony, At the opening ceremony, we had a photographer, Robert Schiller, who did a town photo for us. And so this is the town photo that was taken and printed. It's lovely. And yes, yeah. So we are officially presenting it to the town tonight as our remembrance of the 2019 bicentennial.
Do we know how many people are there?
Oh no, I didn't count the people.
I think the chairman of the board of selectmen maybe should give us
It would be interesting to know, we should take a copy of it that's not a high quality copy and mark it up so we can track it.
Who it is.
That's a lot of people.
You know, that's a great idea because I can't tell you how many old photos I've looked at in my family, other places, and said, who is this person?
That would be a great idea.
That's
A great idea to try to,
I have the one from 100 years ago
yeah.
that I found in a antique place in Amesbury, and it was all ripped up. People down in the center of town put it all back together with me. But it does have red ink on everybody's thing and a number, but there's no legend that goes along with it.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, so that would be a good idea.
Okay, well, we will officially look into this to see what we can do to try to track down who's in the town photo.
Well, what you can do is,
Years from now, we have to use the
Like
spreadsheet.
facial recognition on Facebook.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea.
If you put it on Facebook, then it could recognize.
If you're here, let us know. Yeah. Yeah.
You should, and I will let you.
Do you want to formally present to them?
We are formally, this is it. What do you mean?
where do you want to hang it? Well, tonight we can put it right here, I guess.
You ready? And there's more.
Okay.
There's more. So, Vanessa.
So I'm representing the Council on Aging tonight, and they, from the Heart Quilts, put together this quilt for the bicentennial as a gift to the town, and it was signed by tons of residents, and then went all around bandstand concerts, food mart, everywhere, basically, and just did this as a gift, and so we were thinking we might hang it first in the senior center, then see about maybe doing it, in the library for TBD determined amount of time. But that was just,
Is it two-sided?
it's lined in the back, but it's not signed on the back.
Do we have any money that we could frame that for them? And then it will never get, I don't know,
Nice idea.
coffee spilt on it?
Yeah, you can see about framing it, it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I think framing it would be good.
and then you hang it wherever you want, and then it's there forever.
Sweet.
Great
Are there
idea.
funds for that, or
Great
do we
idea.
come up with it?
We can come up with something unless you guys still have any money?
I'm not
Rob?
sure.
We're working on that.
We should be able to, that's something, we can come up with some type of selectmen's expense, I would think that would be part of the whole memorializing. Because it might, in 2 years, everybody has it, then it gets, we wanna put something else up, then we have to repaint, it gets folded up, put somewhere, it's
Sure.
put down in the cellar or something, and then there's mold.
So that
and,
it's really protected.
Yeah, that's great. There's, we still have some fabric pens if anyone wants to stop by the senior center. If you hadn't had a chance to sign it or put your name or whatever, you're welcome to, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Thank you again for all the hard work you guys have done.
Okay. We'll skip B for the moment. Item C, request for one-day liquor license for the Apple Harvest Brewery Spaghetti Dinner. Hi.
I'm Christina Gentili, one of the co-directors for the Apple Harvest Fund, and I'm working with one of the other co-directors.
So, any questions?
No.
All set?
Finance, do you have any questions of us? Make a motion to approve?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
That was easy.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Okay, easiest thing we've ever done for this, so far this race.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
when it comes to the liquor licenses, we ask people to come in. Sorry.
All right, no,
I don't want to
that
feel.
was truly the easiest part of this whole race. Thank you so much.
Okay, only one thank you per event, too. I'm just joking. Item B, in recognition of West Newbury, this is a proclamation, resident Bethany Groth Durrell's outstanding contribution to supporting the local history of the greater Newburyport area as regional site manager for Historic New England, based at Spencer Pierce Little Farm. As a professional historian and author, the West Newbury Board of Selectmen hereby proclaims September 22nd, 2019 as Bethany Groth Durrell Day. Signed this 16th day of September. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Rick, second.
Item D, Superintendent Bartholomew, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, appreciate it.
So is the building done?
Yes, done.
Okay.
Thank you. We've made a lot of improvements. So since the May election, we wanted to make sure that people stay informed and we just keep everybody abreast. And there's a lot of work that gets done between the time the building gets approved and we're to the completion. And obviously, right now, we're only just over 4 months past that. So we just wanted to kind of recap our journey to this point right now, what we're working on at this point in time. We're going to be moving during this academic year, and then just a little bit of more detail. So I brought with me Brad Dorr, who's got a presentation that he and I are both going to go through and just talk to show you. Now, we are very aware that you have a very long agenda, so it's just kind of a snippet into time.
Excuse me. Can you just make sure you turn?
Bring it a little closer, yeah.
Turn
Sure.
and talk this way.
Yeah.
And Brad, can you hit the
Power button.
power push button there?
There you go.
Good,
Thank you.
How's that?
good.
Green looks good.
Okay.
So September 16th, we're off to a good start. We got that right. Quick overview of what we're going to talk about tonight is just a little bit about process and schedule. We'll talk a little bit about sustainability, design, just in terms of what we've been doing for the past several months, and then just a brief overview of the site plan. So when we last presented to you, I guess it was almost probably about a year, or a little over a year ago, and talking about the process and where we were at that time. So I thought it would be appropriate just to kind of go back in time for a minute and take a quick look at that. We won't dwell on it, but the circles up at the top are representative of what the MSBA process modules are. They have a fairly prescriptive approach to how we go and do things. So this talks about the early stage planning that we went through, and then we went through some of the feasibility and pre-schematic design, and ultimately the schematic design, which ended up in the schematic design for the building and the budget that was attached for that. And as everybody knows, that was successfully approved in all 3 towns. Okay,
Thank you.
which we're all very excited about. That was a huge effort on the part of everybody that was involved, and there certainly were a lot of people that were involved with that. So, going back a little ways to where we left off there and where we are today. So right after the project was approved, there was a little paperwork that had to be done just in terms of memorializing the financial arrangement between the district, okay, and the MSBA. So there was a scope and budget agreement basically saying that, the project that was identified in schematic design and the budget that was identified in schematic design, that everybody understood that that's what the project was. And then there was a project funding agreement that went along with that outlined the terms, okay, of what that project funding and the relationship between the MSBA, okay, and the district would be. So lots of paperwork, not too much that I was involved with. I was happy about that, but that was
We were
just-
involved a lot. We got a lot of cooperation from certainly town of West Newbury and the other 2 Pentucket towns, Merrimack and Groveland as well. It's great coordination.
So after that was kind of actually contemporaneous with that, okay, we were embarking on starting the more detailed design right after the vote was passed. So our project team, which is representing our office and a whole host of other consultants representing about 70 design professionals that are involved in the project, ultimately started this phase right here, design development. And we've been proceeding through that to a point where actually by the end of this week, we're going to be going pencils down for this particular phase. And we're going to go and do an estimate. And so throughout the process, there really are a whole number of touchstones where we go out and do milestone estimates, right? We did one schematic design, doing another one at design development, we'll do another one at 60% construction documents, and we'll do another at 90%. And the notion behind that is what we're trying to do is we go out and as we march down the road with design, we want to go back and check and make sure that we're lined up with the budget. And if it's not, then we go through and we go embark on some value engineering, we take some things out of the project, reset, and then move forward again. So we're almost at that point where we're complete with design development, about to do that estimate. We'll actually have two estimates. One will be done by the construction manager, one will be done by an independent third-party estimate that we retain. Those will be reconciled to come so that we're on budget, or we know where we need to get back to budget, and then we'll move forward with construction documents.
And always one of the key points to remember in this is the number 146.3 is the number 146.3. If the estimates come up high, then it just gets value engineered to make sure we stay to 146.3. There's no increases on that price.
So we'll be starting construction documents for a number of months, which is we're going to be taking the design, which has now been built upon from the schematic level through design development. We're going to be going and really starting to dot our I's and cross our T's and put all those documents together where they'll be in a position that they can go out on the street and be bid. Well, we have a construction manager on this project, so we won't be actually hiring a general contractor. We actually already have a construction manager. There's still a number of trades, okay, required by the law that will have to go and be bid out. Okay, those are called trade contractors under construction management at risk delivery method, or they're called filed subbidders under a more traditional design bid build method. Regardless, we will be going and putting that out, and that's representative of about half of the cost of the building is done through that bidding process. The other part is done through the construction manager, but it's open book back to the district. So that bidding will take place in May of 2019. However, okay.
That was earlier.
Pardon?
May of 2019, we already passed.
Oh, yeah, I guess my date is off there. So bidding is actually going to be done in October, excuse me. Bidding will take place in May of 2020, not 2019, sorry. But while we will still not have gone and had all the documents ready to go out and do the full-scale bidding, we will be doing a number of early release packages. Okay, we'll be going and doing early release packages associated with soil stabilization out in back of the existing school. We'll probably be doing some early foundation, some early concrete work, as well as early release of steel so that we can go out and have that steel fabricated so that by the time we're ready for it to go and start erecting it on site, it's already been fabricated. And then we're actually targeting right now a building completion date of June 2022. Right after the building the kids are out of the building, we'll be going and starting to demolish and abate that building. Actually, reverse order, we'll abate and then we'll demolish. During that summer, right, we'll be doing things like trying to go and get the parking and some of the roads and sidewalks and fields and all of that taken care of. And then finally, the site and field completion will be done October of 2023. So that's a fairly high-level overview of the schedule and the process that we're going through. Talk a little bit about sustainability. We actually had a building committee here last week, and we had the sustainable design engineer consultant come in and go through all of the sustainable features, right, that we're going through, because this project is going to be a lead project. So we are considering sustainability throughout all of the design of the project, and this is just an example of looking at water usage and how we look at that throughout the entire building. We look at it, sinks everywhere, we look at it, toilets, urinals, showers, all of those types of things. And we actually model that to understand what that means in terms of water consumption and where we can try and improve that. So there's a lot of back and forth that happens between the design team and ultimately the end users. The long and short of it, though, all comes down to this little box here in the corner, which is the lead scorecard. And we had agreed early on to pursue this project, okay, as a sustainable project. And you're able to go and garner 2 additional incentive points in your reimbursement rate if you're able to achieve LEED certified, which is at a score of 40. We're actually targeted at the building committee level, higher threshold, silver, although there's no additional incentive for that. We are actually going to be going and getting that right now. We're showing that as green, and we have another 15 to 26 points in the maybe category. So we'll be continuing as we go through the design process to try and optimize what we can in terms of achieving the highest score that we can, recognizing that we need to maintain at least a minimum of 40 to achieve those 2 additional reimbursement points.
Can I ask a question on sustainability? Or do you want to wait till the end?
It's through the chair, however he wants to handle that.
Go ahead.
I was all for the school, like I held up
Excuse me,
signs
sir.
Yeah, could you
Just
just
the microphone.
use the mic and identify yourself?
I was all for the school. I, held up signs and all that stuff. But at the last meeting when we had the vote, this was one woman who spoke, and I was really disappointed that there was like no sustainable energy at all in the school. She said the whole thing's going to be natural gas, no solar panels on the roofs, and I find that incredibly disappointing with what these kids are facing for their future, and to build them a new school and to not have consider that is mind-boggling to me.
So we did consider it.
Yeah.
We actually went through a kind of evaluation process in terms of different energy control measures that you could go and install in the building. We looked at photovoltaics, we looked at geothermal, we looked at a number of different types of ways that we could go and improve the overall sustainability and performance of the building. So one of the aspects behind LEED and sustainability in general is not necessarily to focus on one particular element of it, but it's a much more holistic approach. And cost factors into everybody's equation one way or another. So each one of those types of elements are evaluated on a cost benefit analysis, looking at that ranging from installed cost to overall life cycle cost performance, and then that's presented, and then those decisions are evaluated by the committee. So while we are running on natural gas, we are running on a very efficient system in terms of how it's been designed. We did not go and put in photovoltaics at this point in time. However, the building is set up to be PV ready. So we have installed the infrastructure in place to allow that. So if the district or the towns behind the district decide that they want to go and put something like that into play, if there's additional funding that's available, that opportunity and that infrastructure exists essentially as a plug and play so that they can go and do that. So it's not something that was just kind of not ever thought about. It was something that was thought about, but in terms of cost considerations, looking at all of that, that's kind of how that all went down.
Was geo just out of the question because of
It was a question of it was a couple of things
But
actually.
the question was if geo was,
Geothermal was just out of the question.
if geothermal was out of the question.
It
People
was-
can't hear that at home, that's the thing.
Yeah, it was something that it was.
You want to borrow this?
No, I think I'm good.
It was something that was discussed and evaluated, and based on initial cost versus life cycle costs, and looking at performance and other alternatives, and where do you want to spend those resources, it was something that wasn't selected. I'd also just say that in terms of you look at that site, and that site looks pretty darn big, but actually it's not in terms of when you think about the 2 buildings that are there and the timing of trying to go and install geothermal wells, and then where we have to go and do infiltration for stormwater and all of those things. So it was something that was considered, but again, not selected.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind, Brad, just one additional question regarding the PV, and this is in the email that I know I sent very late today.
Yep.
So, but is it possible to, while construction's going on and you have an opportunity to lay conduit and things like that in ground that's already opened up, is it possible to do something to make the parking lot more easily accommodate solar canopies at a later date?
So I will look into that. Like
Yeah.
you said, we just got that later today.
Yeah.
I think
And
just
my
like,
apologies for that.
no worries. So, just like the discussion that you were at when we talked about the potential for providing for future infrastructure for additional electric vehicle charging stations in the parking lot. I think that this is a little bit more complex just because of, kind of the electrical volume that we're talking about.
Yep.
And then I think also, when we look at those types of canopies, and think of it's not just conduit, it's really about the foundation, right, that we would have to go in and put in place to take care of all of those. So, if we're not doing that now and putting those foundations in now, there's going to be a lot of that that's going to, if that was something that was wanted to be done in the future, that would get ripped up, I think, to a large extent anyways, in order to accommodate those foundations. But it is something, that will run by the MEP team, and trying to get a little bit, deeper dive into understanding what that,
Yeah.
might be.
Okay, yeah, and I was just thinking, like, where there are medians in the parking lot, that might be an appropriate place for, but there's more involved than we're gonna discuss here.
There's always a
But
few more ripples than we
Right,
think.
right, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to throw out thoughts.
No,
Yeah.
it's a good idea, and let's take a look and see what we can find out. So that's talking about sustainability in terms of design. Like I said, right now, we're getting to a point where we're starting to wrap up design development. So we're putting ourselves, in the position where we do have the basis for moving forward with construction documents. This is just an example of, interior elevations, and you can see the level of detail that goes into understanding what's on each wall in every room. So, all the way from, what's going on with, the steel that's in there, to where the doors are, to whether it's curtain, punched opening windows, acoustical things, all of those things are noted in these drawings, and then there's some sections there as well. We start looking at, from a structural perspective, the structural engineers get turned loose. They're actually talked about early steel packages, so this is an example of a three-dimensional framing plan. So each individual piece of steel, okay, is detailed, okay, and put into the model, and then that gets bid out separately to go to whoever that's going to be in terms of fabrication.
Wow.
So, every piece is accounted for. Well, most pieces, usually there's a few that slip through the cracks, but you pick those up, the building's not gonna fall down. After that, you can see the underlay there, in terms of the framing plan, some of the architectural work starts to lead to how do you coordinate this now with the mechanical components. So there's the yellow pieces there, are rooftop units. So, where are those rooftop units in relation to the building? What are the holdbacks that you need to have to go and satisfy OSHA requirements? And you can see in the lighter blue, some of the initial duct routing is trying to go and be put in there. That all has to be coordinated as best it can with the steel, because, steel's pretty tough stuff. You don't want to be able to drive ducts, so sometimes they're going up and around and through, and so there's a lot of coordination that has to happen behind the scenes on that. More simplistically, this is just an axon diagram of the dining common as it continues to evolve. You can see what we're really trying to accomplish here is understanding what the space is, how when you start to go and lay out furniture, are we meeting our objectives in terms of seating requirements, types of seating. Here, we're looking at lots of different types of seating, so it's not going to be the traditional type of dining, which is something that we've spoken a lot about, as you would see if you went into high school today, where everybody's lined up on a table with fixed seating. It's taken on, a much different life in terms of, a more modern type of education, and it's not something that it's, just where people are going to go and eat.
Yeah, the overall theme throughout this building is always going to be flexibility, because 20 years from now, we have no idea how things are going to work, but we know it's not likely to be what we have now.
So this is a more recent, rendering of the second floor, looking over the mezzanine down into the dining commons. Again, what we're trying to do, and none of this is completely written in stone yet. Again, it's design development, but we take these types of drawings and coupled with the other drawings and present those back to the working group and the building committee so they can start to understand, when we're talking about things in, kind of a more architectural language, what does that actually mean in terms of what it might look like? We've redesigned the library to make this work a little bit better. Before, it was much more of an open plan plan in some areas, and it was difficult to get to the digital creation lab. So we sectioned that off, to where we have got instructional spaces. Digital creation has its own separate entrance, so we don't have to be walking through the library to get there. So we've been working through that with the librarian. Everything seems to have started to land. Again, another rendering to start to look at this in terms of decisions that are being made. Something as simplistic as the green in the background that we've highlighted is a structural truss on the backside of the courtyard. So how are we going to be able to actually hang that span, which is about 70 feet, and look at different ways to do it. This was something that hasn't been decided on yet, but it's representative of the truss structure of the Rocks Village Bridge in one section. And if you look closely at the Rocks Village Bridge, you'll see that there's actually 3 sections of the bridge that have different ways of going and supporting the bridge itself. So we're trying to play off some of those. Whether or not this sticks or not, in terms of what the design objective is with the committee, we'll have to go and find out. But again, it's just a way of presenting things so that people can understand, what we're talking about. This is a representation of classrooms. This is actually on the first floor in the high school wing. We call this the Da Vinci Lab. The whole classroom isn't here. But again, as Dr. Bartholomew was saying, it's something where we're really looking at flexibility as being one of the hallmarks of what we're trying to accomplish. So you'll see, right, that all of the chairs, at least they're depicted here, and the tables are depicted on wheels, so that you can be able to go and move those around depending upon what you're trying to accomplish on any given day or any given teaching environment. This is a representation of the site plan. As it currently exists, the colored in areas are the areas that we'll actually be impacting. On the top part, you can see where the new building is being proposed. The existing building is actually tucked right in there. It's actually pretty tight. We're actually going to have to take down a little piece of the building. Just happens to be the boiler room, so we're going to be putting in a temporary boiler and tying that back into the system, just so that we can go and accommodate the new school construction, as well as trying to continue the operational part of people getting in and out of the building, as well as the construction that's going to take place. So you can see the building. This is where the parking would be in the middle. And then there's a ball field and a proposed multi-use overlay field over on the top right. This is the area right now where the proposed artificial turf field would be. With a bleacher and a bleacher building. There would be concession stands, some team rooms, some mechanical spaces, bathrooms. Those would all be located in this area right here. And then we've landed, I think since the last time we spoke, where district office is actually going to remain where it currently is. And we're going to be going and basically during the demolition phase, cutting that building off, right? Putting the wall back on, making the utility connections, but after that, we're really going and handing that off to the district, and the district is taking care of that cost under their own budget. So, I just threw a lot at you as fast as I possibly could, but if you have any questions, I'm more than happy, or superintendent, to try and answer those.
There's some in the back.
Now, looking at that, we still have this, you're not using Farm Lane. You've got the same problem of that really tough intersection by Farm Lane and the roadway coming into the school. Is there any thoughts of fixing that?
So you're talking about just the proximity of Farm Lane to the entryway in there?
Or using Farm Lane rather than having a second road right beside it?
Well, I don't think we looked honestly very hard at using Farm Lane as an access point into the school. There is a bunch of grade differentiation, kind of starts off low, then it goes up high, and then it comes back down. But I think the overriding thought there was to try and keep all of the school traffic on the site, right, and not having to go and bring that traffic out onto Farm Lane. This right now, though, what we're currently proposing is that this is now, okay, not just a one-way all the way through. The site circulation actually, right now, as it's currently being proposed, it's under discussion, is that this could be two-way as well. So and this could be two-way. We have a dedicated bus lane and drop-off, so all the buses would be going and queuing up behind the building here. And that wouldn't be open to general public in terms of being able to get in there. And we think that what that's going to do is it's going to allow actually better site circulation because you won't have those wait times or those down times when the buses are currently there. And then also because you'll be able to take traffic, okay, from the Groveland side and bring it in this way, and then from the West Newbury and Merrimack sides, bringing it down there. The hope is to try and reduce the amount of traffic that will actually be going in and out of the site at that point.
John?
What is the relationship between the parking lot and where the general public might go in the evening, either to the auditorium or to the cafeteria, which, like Jeff's Cafe, is what I'm thinking about?
Right. So the significant majority of the parking is in this location right here, right? And then there'll be a number of walkways that will come across here. This is the pickup and drop-off lane. So it's expected that that wouldn't really be used a lot, okay, except for those types of events, John, if somebody, needed accessible entrance or something like that, they wanted to get out, or I guess that could work as well. Yes. But they would work here, and then they would walk through the courtyard, and the main entry is here and here. The auditorium area is right here, and the gymnasium is right here. So this would be the main parking to be able to get in and out of the building.
At the baseball field, are you also proposing 2 overlay multiple use fields? It looks like there are 2 there.
So, yeah, there's one, right? There might be something that's in the background there with an existing condition or something, I'm not sure. But right now, it's being proposed as this rectangular space is being proposed as an overlay field, multi-purpose field on top of the baseball outfield.
It's for home, it's not for here.
Oh. So I'm wondering that the amount of parking spaces, actually, because we have town meeting here sometimes, and it doesn't look like a lot of parking. So what kind of parking is that going to accommodate?
So overall on the site, our goal is to retain the same number of parking spots as currently exist, which is in about the 425 space range. So with respect to enrollments and actual day-to-day usage, we actually think that should be good because enrollments are declining. So this design point in terms of students that would be driving back and forth to school is expected to be lower than is currently the case, right? And then teachers, would be around about the same number. So you're running at around 1,120 students, I think, right now. The design enrollment here is projected to be around 965. We don't really have a lot more room for more parking on the site. You can see that the site is pretty much fully subscribed. This area here, is a wetland area. This area in between is a wetland area. This area here is already developed with the athletic fields in the back. So what we've tried to do is accommodate as many parking spots as we could on the site, while still trying to go and strike at least what we think is a somewhat healthy balance between green space and asphalt.
Is the 425 for the secondary campus or just for the high school?
It's for the entire campus.
Is that the existing parking lot by the middle school? That's what's there now? Is that what I'm looking at?
Right there?
Right by the football?
So that's where the existing parking for the middle school is, right there.
Okay.
In front of the administrative buildings, it'd be the same parking.
Right.
Just be cleaned up.
So that 425 includes the parking by the administrative building?
It does.
I think it's 435, but that's okay.
Okay.
It might be good to explain, earlier when you were talking about sustainability and the LEADS program, what actually 2 points really means.
What 2 points really means?
Yeah, because you said we were able to get
Oh,
two
in
more
terms of
points.
Money.
reimbursement?
I know, yeah, I know what it's kind of a rhetorical question, but it might be nice for people to know that you're doing that, and you said we were able to get 2 more points from
Sure.
the MSBA, so I'd like to, just so people would understand that.
You wanna handle that one, or you want me to handle
I mean, it's just over $2 million is what it would mean that we get as part of the grant from the
Reimbursed.
state, from reimbursed, yeah, that we don't, the taxpayers don't have to pay for.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll, oh, wow. So we'll try to be back and we'll try to do this periodically, just to keep you informed.
When is the funding situation? How is that?
So the
What's
finance
happening with
situation
that?
has been great. We actually met with the Mass Finance Oversight Committee back in August. I think it was August. And we just had our first bond. We were saying 275 is what we were hoping to get. We actually got 262, but we also got with that a $3.25 million premium. So we didn't have to take the full 50 million. We only needed to borrow 46.8. So that's a great savings on that initial bond. We'll do one more. You have to spend it all that money has to be spent within a year and a half. So we'll go a year from now, we'll go and put out for another bond. We'll post for another bond, and we don't know what the rate's going to be, but that 262 was a great rate to get.
So in other words, we're not borrowing all the money now.
No, because you have to spend it all within 18 months. If we could have,
Okay.
we definitely would have.
That rate.
That rate was excellent.
So when you were giving us all your projections, you were using obviously a higher rate.
That's correct.
And what rate were you using?
275. So we weren't far off. So yeah, that's, you're welcome.
Thank you.
That's a good change.
Next item on the agenda is people requesting appointment to the new tree committee. Is anyone here for that? Okay. Who wants to go first? No.
Can we all come up?
Yeah.
Put them on alphabetical on the agenda.
Oh, alphabetical. Okay.
Just, if I could, Chairman.
Yes.
Just to preface, so there are, the way the committee composition was approved by the board was for 5 members. We have 7 candidates, as well as who knows how many who haven't submitted. So there has been suggestion, as you saw in the correspondence, of potential consideration of adding a couple of associate members. So I just wanted to preface by saying that.
What does the board think about that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of thought on that.
Go ahead.
That we're always trying to get people to join these committees and boards, and we're sometimes pulling teeth to do it. So if we have people that want to do it, I think we should make some accommodations so they can be on the board, because I think more people will be helpful, especially if it's a new committee. There'll probably be a lot of startup work that needs to be done for them to get rolling. So I would recommend that we increase it by 2 associate members.
By 2 more?
Yeah, because that would then give us enough, right? Or not?
What's your thoughts, Rick?
That sounds reasonable. I guess that, that at least allows all 7 people who've, put their hand up so far to participate, 5 people as full members and 2 people as associates. And then the question is, how do we decide?
So who's here?
Yeah.
Maybe just say your names.
Jake Martin. Kathy Mandeville. Francesca Pomerantz.
And Margaret Hawkins.
I volunteer to be an associate member if you want to.
That helps.
That helps.
Well, that certainly helps.
You know what associate member means before you?
I assume it means that I wouldn't be able to vote, but I would attend the meeting.
There you go.
Right.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And I know the board is well aware of Fred Shenania's interest. As you know, he has a standing conflict on Monday, so can't be here, but before this board or when the Senate regarding this committee.
So I'd like to make a motion that we have Fred, Margaret, Kathy, Jane, and Claudia be the 5 members, 3-year terms expiring in 3 years on June 15th, which would be
2020.
20. No,
Second
not
that.
2020.
Oh,
On
3-year
2022.
terms.
oh, 3,
Oh,
okay.
3, oh, okay, all right. Are there any other appointed committees with 3-year terms, just out of curiosity? Is that
Yeah.
unusual?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be to 2022?
Yes,
Yes.
2022. June 15th, 2022.
Okay, I second that.
And then I make a motion that Barbara Hack and Francesca be associate members, their terms ending 2022, June 15th.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank-
If you could just to repeat, I want to, I'm taking the notes over here. So which were the associate?
Barbara Hack and Francesca. I didn't want to butcher your last name. I'm not being disrespectful. Oh, that's an easy, okay. Just like it sounds, just like it's spelled. Comrades.
Thank you all for volunteering. As Glenn said, it's great to see an outpouring of people interested rather than.
So does everybody know what they need to do?
So,
Yeah, so that's, yeah, before you leave here, you have to get sworn in, but, during the day or whenever, by our, town clerk, town council, and then there's an ethics thing by the state you have to take about open meeting law, like stuff.
online
Do
test.
it online at home, and then it pops out a certificate free, and then you just bring it in.
And does that apply to associate members as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you've already done it.
If you've already done it, then you don't, if you've already done it for another committee, you don't have to do it, it's good for the length of time.
Yeah, and you can also, you don't have to print it out, you can get it as an electronic copy and then just forward it to
Forward it to
town clerk.
town clerk, or in
And where
town.
do we get that address, that online address?
We can send out a note to everybody.
And you have all your information, correct? Part of it?
Yes, yep.
So why don't we do that, and that'd be easier, I just didn't want you to run away not knowing that there are a few other things that you need to do.
Okay, and I will, with everyone here, I will say that I know Fred is interested in setting an initial meeting in the relatively near term, so if you have no objections, provide him your contact info. He's got his eye on a potential grant opportunity, so he's aware that that would come back before the board. The deadline would be November 1st for the grant submittal, but there's an earlier expression of potential interest to apply, which is the deadline of October 1st. So you probably will get an email from Fred the next day or so.
We already got it.
But you need to be sworn in before then. The ethics thing, no, but that needs to be done relatively soon, but the sworn in thing, you're not sworn.
His office.
Yep, town clerk's office.
8 to 4:30, Monday through Thursday.
How long does it take?
It takes about 5 minutes.
You can't do it now? Okay, sorry, I was just trying, everybody's here.
It'd be easier, because
Okay, never mind.
it's not just a swearing in, also have to get the open meeting notice, publication and.
I
stuff
tried,
like that.
sorry.
So, just drop by anytime.
Meet you all again later.
Again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is a discussion of the Memorial Day Parade. We had some, first of all, I'd like to commend Angus and Teresa for running the best Memorial Day Parade we've had in since I've been here. So that being said, there were following the parade, we had some discussion about some people being uncomfortable or not happy with some of the participants in the parade. The town does not have a policy in place as to what is allowed and not allowed, or what should be allowed and should not be allowed in the parade. So our feeling is that and we had feedback from the public that people wanted to address the Board of Selectmen on this issue. So the board wants to hear from the public on about how they feel about this issue, and I think that we are not. We're not. First of all, we're not. I don't intend to make any. The board doesn't intend to make any decision on what to do about public comment today. I think we'll take it under advisement. But we welcome hearing from everybody in all manner of comments about this. Some parades we got are run by outside organizations, even though they take place in a municipality. In this case, our parade has municipal funds that go towards it, and it is a town function, so that changes the discretion in terms of who and what can be in the parade somewhat. That adds another element to it. So that being said, I think town council and the town manager have some initial comments, and then after that I would open it up to the public. And again, because we have a really long meeting tonight, I'd kind of like that if you do have comments on this, that you'd restrict them to about 3 minutes each, if that's okay. So, Angus?
Well, I'll keep it very succinct. The way I set it up for the board, I think the questions that are before you are whether you would like to enact a policy, which would be the first time, and which would either discourage or prohibit certain language, flag, or symbols. And if there is to be a policy, obviously it would be very important to determine who would make those judgment calls, because, well, you could go in the direction of a prescriptive list. I think there's concerns that I would have about that in terms of it would be hard to do that without, I think, rejecting some kind of bias one way or the other in terms of what's offensive to one or another. So I think inevitably there would be judgment calls, and I would recommend that if we go that direction, that it be there be a dedicated entity, whether an individual or something that's conferred the authority to make those judgment calls, and ideally not a town staff person, because I think it's kind of a no-win situation, and we put a staff person, I think, in a difficult spot. But I think the important thing, and town council has certainly said this, is in order to do that, there need to be some guidelines, something to point to, rather than just a kind of arbitrary decision of what's acceptable or not.
Mike, do you want to make any comments?
Yeah, I think that, and I've looked at a number of different policies from other communities and other parade situations, and I think that the takeaway is that you don't want to have a kind of a content-based discrimination, where you're saying this content is allowed, this content isn't, those kind of judgment calls. But what other communities do is they basically dictate the purpose of the parade. And if you just say that, all right, the purpose of this parade is to do a certain function, in our case, it would be to honor the veterans of the United States, and that basically the people marching is doing it for that purpose. So you could basically at that time say, well, other things are not permitted. It's your parade. You get to basically run it. The issue sometimes comes up as well, does people have free speech? Well, they still have free speech, but they're regulated as to contact, time, and place. And if your parade is for a particular purpose, you can limit it to that purpose. But I think the way to address it is in the positive as opposed to the negative, saying that the purpose of our parade is for honoring Americans, veterans, and servicemen, and that's anything that really doesn't do that is not part of the parade.
You gonna say something? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I have some, I think, I have some comments, but I have some people that couldn't be here tonight that have asked me to read something so they could have their, I'll do that later, but I think I would rather open it up to listen to people so that I can just start listening.
Okay, any comments from the public? I'd ask you to come up to the mic and give your name.
My name is Julian Knowles, and my main point, I think, is that the Memorial Day Parade is to honor our veterans and to be positive and honor the positive parts, if you can have positive parts of war. We don't memorialize evil things done during war, things that, like for example, on the float, barrels of napalm, which were used against innocent civilians to burn them in Vietnam. We need to remember that that was done by us, but you don't celebrate that. That sort of thing is hateful. Our soldiers weren't guns for hire. That, they weren't mercenary, militia people. So guns for hire is wrong. That's not what we are remembering about our people. The Confederate flag is used generally in this society as a hate symbol, based on the group in the Civil War who lost, and they lost because slavery was wrong, and to celebrate that again is not a good thing. So basically, as far as I could see it, and many people that I know, the Memorial Day Parade is a memory, a memorial, but it's also, I've never been at one where there has not been a prayer for peace, a prayer for the, hoping that the necessity for more people dying and veterans dying goes away. So that particular item was completely unacceptable. And I'll leave it at that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Tim Kane. People can, it was an exact replica of a Vietnam vehicle, and they can, say it was in honor of the soldiers, and we can twist ourselves in knots defending that. It was, to me, just pretty blatant right-wing extremism on parade. I didn't appreciate having my 11-year-old daughter have a turret pointed at her while she's picking up candy on the side of the road. I don't think we honor those who fought in Vietnam and died by having the world's most famous draft dodger's name on the front of the float. It was so grotesquely politicized. And it should also be about remembering people who served, but also be about community. We're all getting together as a community of West Newbury, and it should be a positive thing. And I don't think it was. I think it was meant to be unsettling and provocative, and I think it worked. And I think that's what they wanted to do. I've seen all the social media, and I understand the freedom of speech and, go protest downtown or something. This was a community parade that we're paying tax dollars for, and it was just, at best poor taste, at worst blatant fascism on parade. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Do you want to ask a question?
I'd rather not. John?
John McGrath. I agree with both what Julian and this gentleman said about the offensive part. However, as the board and the town government work towards coming up with a means of getting a satisfactory result and that people are pleased with the parade, rather they're pleased with the parade but don't have at least one element of bad taste in their mouth when they leave, that the approach to do that and to stay within the bounds of what one can enforce and cause to happen, in my view, ought not start listing things that can't be, for example, in a very long and difficult policy. So my life experiences and all sorts of stuff leads me to how do I end run and get my hands on the way to have authority out front. So there's not some squabble at parade day, yes you can, no you can't. So I prepared a short paragraph that I will read to you of my thoughts on the topic. And the town of West Newbury may conduct a Memorial Day event to honor veterans, citizens, and its community values. Parenthetically, the parade is bigger than just the pure veterans nowadays. We see the youth groups and that spins off to them. They're aware, their parents tell them why they're there, their coaches tell them why they're there. The circumstances and conduct of, meaning the parade. The town has and will organize, sanction, and oversee a Memorial Day parade within its several authorities, meaning the legal, whether it's the police department blocking the road, DPW doing crowd control stuff. The nature of the parade in total and in each of its separate components, meaning floats or whatever, are subject to the judgment of a duly appointed parade mistress or parade master. Duly appointed would mean from this board, presumably. The parade master and parade mistress will periodically report the status of preparations to the town manager. The parade master, mistress shall post public and legal notices informing those individuals or groups wishing to participate that they must apply in writing. The responses to that parade mistress will be accepted, modified, or rejected in writing. The parade mistress alone is the authority in the determination of eligibility for participation. Now I'll go to PM, so I don't have to keep swapping genders. The PM can make on-the-spot exceptions to any prior policy or determination to accommodate civility and spontaneity, the pluses and the minuses that might occur at last moment. The PM shall be guided by personal and stated or perceived community sensitivities. Functionally, that's the body of it. Functionally, the PM can post the parade as a public meeting venue, the parade route. The PM as the chair of that group with those, I lost my place there. Well, PM as chair with those authorities to post the meeting. The PM as a committee of one with implied authority to name associates. That's, and then something in this form, which is quite simple, and if it passes a few other tests that I'm not competent to judge, could be submitted as a bylaw at fall town meeting. Now, this is a little different than one might expect, but I was trying to see, because professionally I have engaged in so many ways in writing contracts to write descriptions to not get taken advantage of my bosses and it's nice to be able to keep it simple if you can take the authority out front. Thank you.
Lisa?
I'm Elisa Grammer. I live on Coffin Street. I agree with much of what was said before. I would say that it struck me, having researched some of our Civil War veterans and people who are in our cemeteries who died for the United States of America. I was somewhat taken aback with the Confederate flag, which seems to be an insignia of the enemy. The other thing I would say is I looked, because I was very intrigued with what does Vietnam have to do with the Confederate flag? And I found a book, it's called Fighting on Two Fronts, African Americans in the Vietnam War. It's by James Westhelder, who's a professor of history at the University of Cincinnati. And I'm just gonna read 2 sentences. It's about racism in the military. After Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination on 4 April 1968, white service personnel at Cam Ranh Bay donned makeshift Ku Klux Klan outfits and paraded around the base. Throughout the Vietnam War, Confederate flags, a constant source of racial antagonism to Black troops, were proudly and defiantly flown. So think about how that honors or doesn't honor parts of our service people.
Barry Fogel, Upland Lane. Thank you for taking this up, and thank the town manager for bringing it to you. I completely support the idea that you adopt a policy. I completely support the idea that you should establish standards and not leave it vague. I think you can make a decision between what's positive and negative. I think we can all agree that the judgment call should be made in the policy that certain symbols should not be allowed in a town-sponsored and funded parade. There's a short list that is a start. There should be no symbols of the KKK, no symbols like a swastika, Confederate flag, or negative images based on race, religion, or gender. I think there was an editorial in the Daily News after the Yankee homecoming parade a year ago about the candidate running against Elizabeth Warren, who was parading with the symbol of her, making light and fun of her claim to Native American heritage. And the Newburyport, the Daily News, actually, in its editorial said the town should come up with a policy to ban that kind of image. I agree. It's completely within the town's authority to regulate the time, place, and manner of speech in a parade you sponsor. And so I would completely urge you, I strongly urge you to adopt a policy that speaks specifically to banning those types of images. If somebody, as what Mr. Kane said, if somebody owns a vehicle that he happens to think reflects the Vietnam era and he wants to drive it around on his private property or on his own time, he's welcome to do it. Same thing having the Trump name on it. But in a town-sponsored parade, there should be strict and clear limits on the kind of speech that we would tolerate, which I think everybody can agree, at least if they're intelligent enough to understand what a negative symbol is and what a positive symbol is, that we should not allow any negative symbols of the type I mentioned. So I hope when you adopt a draft policy, you'll circulate that or post it and let the public comment on it. But I urge you to take that up as one of your functions, which would be to set a strict standard for the kind of speech allowed during town events. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Baker. I wanted to make a few comments about my experience riding in the parade and my thoughts that in a lot of ways this town has kind of lost the purpose of this parade and the meaning behind it. Memorial Day and the parade that we run is not a cheerful or celebratory event. It is a somber event that is meant to remember those who have served and who have given everything to this country. There's a reason that when in this particular parade, you don't hear the fire department, for instance, sounding horns or sirens or ringing bells, which is something that is incredibly common in most parades. And that reason is that this is a somber event. And as I was riding a classic car, driving a classic car in this parade, I had a number of people on the side requesting that I honk a horn or something, but that is not a part of this event. This event is meant to be remembering those that that have served and given what they have to this country. I just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gordon?
Nobody else has anything. A couple of people who couldn't make it here tonight asked me if I could read something for them.
Do you want to identify those people?
Yep. I just have to get to it. So this is from a person on Bachelor Street, A.I. Bradley. Historical accuracy and freedom of speech has been cited as a basis of having napalm, Confederacy, and Trump on a parade vehicle. Historical accuracy is a completely irrelevant question in this argument. Firstly, the Memorial Day parade is heavily viewed by children. They are in the parade in large numbers, and they are in attendance in large numbers. Most importantly, the parade is not for a president nor a political party, nor to promote a perspective on war itself. The purpose is to gather together as a town to honor the people, not war, because people sacrificed for their country and when called, regardless of the virtue of the fight. Organizations for servicemen are in it and honored, and organizations that choose to do so are there to honor them. End of story. So a vehicle that solely by its visual content extols a violent perspective or aggressive copying mechanism or glorifies a method of killing is not part of the mission of this parade, and it is not appropriate for our children. Confederate flags like it or not today in our world and country bear the context of slavery, which is not part of the mission of this parade. Political bumper stickers promote politicians and their agendas, and like it or not, additionally today in our world, in our country, that act of promotion and creates divisivity feelings between the citizens, which is opposite of the agenda of this parade. Please, if you could, read this, and thank you. For all those reasons, the marvelous napalm truck, to quote Sesame Street, is that one of those things that doesn't belong here. Sorry about that. And then I got another one. Here is my parade opinion for the record. After living in this town for 62 years, it was the best and most patriotic parade I have seen. If the people are offended by a small flag, they can turn their heads. Don't let a small number of people dictate what happens. They come and go. Let's honor these kids that put their life on the line so the people that are speaking out against things have the right to do it.
Who's that?
This is Joyce Buckland, Georgetown Road.
Joyce what?
Buckland, Georgetown Road. Both asked me to read it. Both said that I could use their names. Okay. that's all I have, but I have some questions or comments for people to clarify some things that were said tonight.
Go ahead. I'd rather not get into a huge, people have given their comments, but.
But I just want to try to clarify mine.
Okay.
I'm going to be making, I want to just clarify a few things. There was just there was a comment about guns, so that's glorifying something, somebody mentioned that. So would the people marching, shooting their guns, do they feel the same way about that? And I'm not taking one side of it, I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the feeling of people. Because if there is a gun turret, or whatever was said on that vehicle, and then we have guns shooting, I think that, I personally, if that's the feeling of the town, that's actually even worse than having a truck in the parade. So I just was curious if, because a lot of people mentioned that.
Margaret Hawkins. I have to say the guns shooting, the Minutemen reenactors, is upsetting to my children. We live on Main Street. We can't get away from the parade. We can't get away from any of it.
Shooting of the guns, your children.
It's the loudness, but it's also, what really is that accomplishing? They'll walk down the street, they'll shoot the guns at random times. I'm not sure if it's adding to the parade. A lot of the comments tonight are that, do we really need to glorify the death and the shooting, or do we glorify the people who actually gave their lives? So, yeah.
The shooting of the guns in the Memorial Day Parade and the events associated with the Memorial Day Parade are salutes. And to those who haven't been in the military or don't read about it, so they wouldn't understand the difference between casual shooting for fun or to make noise like a firecracker, that's not what a salute is. A salute is a statement in the military form of honor and respect.
I think your question was directed towards me when I said the turret. Okay, well, to clarify, I'm kind of on the same page with him. I understand it's a salute and it's an honor, the 6-gun salute or whatever. That's far, far different than having a turret spinning and pointing at people on the sidelines. Those Minutemen marching and all those, they don't take their guns and point them at the spectators on the side of the road. So that's just,
Any further comments? I thank you all for giving us input.
So, Mr. Chairman, some of these things we do, and then we put them on. We like to think about it and reflect, and then we'll come back in March, and I just made that up, so it's not happening in March. I just made up some random day. We come back a date forward, and nobody knows it's there, but then we make a decision, and then they wish they did it. If we're going to have a policy, obviously, we know people here, we should, the day we're voting on it, we should do it, or maybe we have a policy that we've set forth and then put it up on our website maybe, for people to comment on it, and then we could then at a later time take a vote on it. I'm not saying that we're going to agree with all those things, but at least maybe this is the town's parade, so the biggest perspective that we could get. We're only 3 people that are just passing through the night at a certain time, and then we're gonna make a decision that could last a while for the town. So I would like to try to do this as,
And it's a work in progress. I mean,
yeah, that's true, because
yeah.
a lot of things that weren't offensive 20 years ago, well, they probably were offensive 20 years ago, but they just weren't brought to light, and people have different perspectives. So.
I would definitely agree that you definitely need to create a policy and circulate it to the town, and get hearings on it, do something about it, not wait till a month before the next parade.
No.
No, we're not gonna wait till a month
March thing
before.
was just-
Yeah, he just said that as an example.
I
Yeah,
just didn't want that
yeah.
we take it under advisement, that our next meeting we vote on something and nobody's here, because generally, it's Mike's in the audience and maybe somebody else, and nobody's here, then we vote on something and everybody's in arms because they didn't, you know, that's all I want.
Is it your intention to vote on it at the next meeting?
I would say not.
No.
In fact, I can say not.
I wouldn't mind in the near future get some type of rough draft that we could put up.
Is it reasonable to think of gathering a few people and forming a committee that would come up with?
I would say no.
I would say no, yeah.
Because that goes down a road that is probably, I think the three people who are up here are pretty open-minded. I think that's the reason why we're doing this. And if we get some type of draft, I would propose, I'm only speaking for myself, and then try to maybe post it, and then try to get some feedback.
Get feedback, yeah.
Get some feedback, but in a short period of time, you know, and then take that feedback in and make a good conscious decision. But I think Archie too said it is a moving document too, because things could change.
Do you anticipate before town meeting,
Which town meeting?
the special town meeting?
Oh, the October one?
I'm just trying to get a sense of what you're saying.
I would think rather than, especially because this is a new, I would not, this is not just my personal feeling, I would not want to make it, say, a bylaw right at the moment. I think we need to sort of make.
Were you asking to make it a bylaw, or you were just looking for a date that it's gonna be out? She wasn't looking for a bylaw.
Oh, okay.
I would say we would have it done by the first of the year, and that would be the draft, that would be to get the feedback, maybe then do it out again, and then do it right. If we're gonna do this, we should do it right.
But
we already
have the draft.
We already made the appointments to that committee, we put you on there, so, Barbara. No, but you're on it, so I didn't know if, I didn't want you to sit here all night, and then go, I thought I was here for a committee, so, you're on it. Okay.
So just to follow up, is the draft by the first of the year?
No, it's all gonna be finished by the first of the year. That's what we hope.
Thank you.
Because then we have to start planning for the Memorial Day parade.
That's a target, obviously. You never know what else might happen, but that's a target.
And this is not an easy issue to deal with. If you recall, we have the, Mike McCarron provided us with the guidelines of the St. Patrick's Day Parade in South Boston. And if you recall, the controversy related to that and how much give and take and so forth was involved in creating that. So this is not something that people can agree on easily. So I don't think we can decide this in 2 weeks, no.
We always think these things are gonna be easy, like a sign bylaw, right? And then.
One word takes like a half an hour, yeah.
A year to do that, because every time we made a decision, everybody came in and said, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing? This is a little bit more, I think this is gonna be a little bit easier, but that's
The good thing is you're not inventing the wheel. There have to be examples out there, so who would it be that you're?
We already have examples.
Yeah, I mean, is the town manager gonna take the lead on drafting it, or the town council?
I would prefer not to put more on the town manager at this point and give us some homework to do.
Yeah.
And then draft it, with Mike, but of course, the town manager is gonna be an integral part. This seems one of those things that we do and just push it off to him. He has a list longer than you want, anybody
Like
wants.
your idea of having a draft that you post, get some comment, and take a look at that, that's a good idea.
Did you just give me a compliment?
The whole board.
So you get 1/3 of a compliment.
Can we move on?
Okay.
Nothing that we don't, this is not serious, but we just want to.
Thank you.
I would say, if there's anyone who wants to receive specific notice, once a draft is available, just leave your email address with.
You really shouldn't leave because we're gonna talk about stormwater now, so that's really good. Our next item is the draft of the MS4 annual report on stormwater management.
How long has this been, Mr. Chairman? Are you here for other stuff, Wayne?
Am I here for other stuff? I hope not, but I probably am. I'm hoping I make this real quick unless you guys have questions for it.
No, I was just gonna have these historical commissions.
Sure.
Deal with things really quick.
This sounds weird, but
We should have.
I did read a lot of this, but I don't understand what MS4, what does that mean? What is MS4?
I thought that was a,
Is that this area?
It's MS16.
Oh, that's MS16.
Yeah, coming across the border.
It's the way we manage our stormwater. It's a federal mandate that the state has adopted.
What is the abbreviation?
Acronym for something?
It's stormwater management.
I believe it's a municipal separated storm sewer system.
What's the 4S?
Yes, so it's separated storm sewer system.
Oh, okay.
MS4.
Okay, okay.
That's a good variation on an acronym.
Yeah. Making an acronym even harder, right?
It's better than.
Sure, we can let them go. We could skip.
You might as well present something, you worked.
Well, but there's a couple of separate items. There's the stormwater plan, there's the annual report, the IDDE. If it's up to you, but it probably won't take long, but theirs might take even less time.
No.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
I want to hear.
I think we worked hard on it. Makes
Well,
sense.
I'm going to try to keep it fast. That's my reward for working so hard on it. So we had to prepare a stormwater management plan and an IDDE plan, which is illicit detection, discharge detection, elimination plan. And then with those plans, we also prepared around 30 other documents to go with it, which I don't have to present each one individually. But the DEP and the EPA requires the city or town to vote on the plan prior to submitting it June 30th. Well, it's September 16th, so we're a little bit behind on that, but we're not as bad as everybody else is, I'm hearing. So before we submit, we have submitted the plan to DEP and to the EPA, so we don't get penalized for being late. But the first plan we submitted was the stormwater management plan, which you've looked at. It's obviously, it's broken down into 6 parts. I'm not going to go through each one of those parts, but it's a working document, so we could work on it all year long, submit it. Make changes for the next 12 months, submit it again. So if we don't like something in the plan, we're welcome to change the plan within reason of the requirements from DEP and EPA. So it's a working document. This is our first draft. We submitted it. We'll get comments from them back if there's something that they don't like or don't think is fair or reasonable, or we're not following the guidelines. But we pretty much followed everybody's stormwater management plan in the area. Is going to resemble this one because we're all working together on completing it with the same thoughts. So our plan should look like Groveland, should look like Georgetown, should look like Newburyport's in a way, but Newburyport's much more larger. So that's the stormwater management plan. We wanted to submit that for the record and have you guys vote to approve it, even though it's already been submitted June 30th. So that was the stormwater management plan. And then a part of the stormwater management plan is we had to come up with a plan, which I did not print out all 66 pages of it, but it's the IDDE plan is how we do our investigations to find illegal connections into our system. We don't have a major problem in town because we don't really have a sewer system, so people aren't really dumping stuff into our sewer system. They might be dumping some stuff into our drainage system, so we still have to concentrate on that. But again, we have a very small, limited drainage system in the area. I think we have 248 catch basins in the MS4 area. So compared to most cities and towns who have thousands or tens of thousands, we have a small area to focus on. So just the plan outlines how we're going to find those, test them, and what do we do if we find somebody doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So that was part. So that's the second part of the stormwater management plan. And then just to piggyback the next agenda item, the annual report. I don't know if we have a copy of that, but we're like 99% done with the report. I should have it done by the end of the week. We'll be hopefully a week or two early and not wait in the last minute. And we're going to submit that also. That one, I don't think it needs a vote from the selectmen. It just needs the town manager's signature. But these two documents, the stormwater management plan and the IDDE plan, does need a vote from the Board of Selectmen accepting it as a plan for the town. So I welcome questions, thoughts. If you enjoyed reading the 125.
I really liked reading about the different things that you looked at when you were looking at the connections, and you had to define what wading boots were for and stuff. That was great.
I'm sorry?
Like what wading boots were for, and what a utility knife was for, and what a pencil was for. I thought that was great. There was bureaucracy in its finding. What is a clipboard for?
Yes.
I thought that was great.
It's painful. I agree.
So who wants to make the motion?
I haven't got
What
it.
are we making a motion?
So we want to accept the management plan and the IDDE plan.
So moved.
Can we do it as one motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. A lot of work.
Thank you.
I would, I would say, as I've told this before, I've been working with stormwater since the late '90s, and it's one of the most onerous unfunded mandates I'm aware of in the entire universe of unfunded mandates. And I really want to commend Wayne for his leadership and hard work on this. We've also had support, and we'll continue to rely on support from other land use departments in the town, both planning, conservation, health. But his office has really taken the lead, and I want to thank him for that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wayne. I know this is really a lot of work. I also thought it was good because it said one of the best ways to find sewage was olfactory sensations, which I thought was, you know it when you smell it.
You know, what's kind of interesting about this, though, is that this really is important because, you know, there was what was the name of the kickoff meeting for, not the Merrimack River Watershed Council, but it's, you know, the sort of new organization that's watching the Merrimack, looking at the Merrimack, you know, trying to resolve the water quality issues in the Merrimack. And, you know, one of the takeaways I got out of that was that roughly 50% of the pollutants in the river are not from CSOs. You know, when there's a big storm event, roughly 50% of the content is not from CSOs, you know, combined sewer overflows from major septic systems, but instead are from distributed dispersals from all over. And that's what this MS4 addresses.
That's right. I didn't in any way intend to convey it's not important. I wrote my graduate thesis about it, so I certainly know it's important. But you know, the point is that it's more with less. You know, it's and so you know, we're lucky to have a director who's
yeah. Well, thanks for doing it.
Because it's a lot of documentation. The underlying issues are very important, no question.
Wayne, don't leave for 1 second, just about the next one. Okay. So we have a request to declare as surplus the town hall chairs. So I sort of, I don't know too much about this. So can we have a little more information about this, Elisa?
A few. So when Notre Dame burned, I thought, oh, what do we have in West Newbury that we want to protect? And of course, I thought about Town Hall. And then Dot and I, who should be up here, looked about Town Hall, and both Wayne Amaral, our DPW person, and Glenn Clohasey agreed to come with us and look. And unfortunately, Town Hall is in, well, it's good. It's in pretty good shape. Glenn found one little emergency thing having to do with the connection of the wire to the road, and I'm sure that's no longer an issue. And I know that Wayne is working on painting and doing other things that are important to preserve the building. But there's a fire hazard. The fire hazard has to do with junk that people have put in town hall, of all sorts, from all sorts of places. And these chairs, which are stacked, they're
On the stage, the junk. Specific.
yes. Well, there's a closet full of empty boxes and some other stuff that needs to be taken care of as well. But the chairs in particular are stacked as tall as I am, which is not very tall, but it's tall enough to make trouble. And they're maple, they're antiques, and you can sell them for decent money. And as Wayne has said, they're too heavy to be used. They're not usable. So why are we keeping them, and why don't we sell them? I haven't talked to anybody who doesn't want one. And you know, Glenn has said this is a fire hazard. We need to get rid of it as soon as we can. So
we haven't really paid any attention to them because they're behind the curtain. So we don't notice it when we go to these other events at the town hall until you start inspecting the building, looking for things that need to be rectified. And that jumped right out at us.
So I make a motion that we surplus the chairs at town hall. Now, discussion.
Yeah, I'll second that, so we can have discussion.
Yeah, then how are we gonna do it? That's the discussion.
Well, I would just ask, these were the chairs we used to use when we had town meeting there, is that correct?
Correct.
The old ones, they're like 2s and 4s.
Right, but we did use them when town meeting was there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we bought, then we bought those plastic Samsonite chairs. And then we bought, they were like cream color, and then we bought the other ones with cushions on.
Then we moved.
Yeah,
No, correct, but I'm just thinking, like, for example, on Memorial Day, chairs had to be brought in to be used. So basically, is there any point that we would ever want to use these again?
I would defer to our expert, Mr. Amaral, on that.
Now he's a storage guy, now he's an expert chair guy.
I would hope we would never use those again. They weigh like 60 pounds apiece. If we're looking to take out some of our guys, those are the best way to take them out. They're actually tough to move just because, you know, they open on you as you try to pull them down.
And they're stuck, and they're together.
And they weigh a ton, and they're piled on top of each other. So my fear when we walked around was I'm just thinking about kids walking behind the stage during an event or during a celebration, and one chair falls and they all fall. So I looked at it that way, and Glenn was saying this is like an OSHA issue, and I agree with him. This is not the way. So if we're going to keep the chairs, we need to put them somewhere that's safe. It's not a fire hazard. And then we're saying, why are we going to move these chairs 3 times? And they're amazing chairs. It would look great on my front porch personally. And I think everybody said the same thing also. I mean, we're hiding them behind a curtain for 30 years. This is what a waste.
And I would just say that I looked up what they go for, and it's between $200 for the small sets and $600 for the big ones if they're in good shape. So, and we have something, I looked up the history of them as well, and it's around 170 or so. I don't know, because I was not going to try to count them. That would not be safe either.
170 pieces or 170 chairs?
Pieces. So multiply it out, and it's some money.
Combination of 2, 3s, and 4s.
They're in, as far as we can tell, 2s and 4s.
There's only 2s and 4s. So there's, do you understand what so there's
172 is what was
yeah, I
purchased
saw
at
that,
that time, yeah.
But it wasn't, that time back in
Yes.
1927.
So, and we have not counted them, but there are a lot.
No, I know, I've been there, because we had this there.
Now, to answer to
This
whether
was
we
there.
would need them in the future for meetings such as Memorial Day, there are at least 50, by my count, of the folding chairs such as we use in the annex for the meetings over there. And those seem to be permanent residents of the town hall, so it would not mean a large distribution of other chairs that would
We
need
don't
to
use them now, so. It's
Right,
easier
right.
for us to transport chairs from this building and bring them down there than take those old heavy ones off the stage and put them down. So we haven't used them since town meeting.
Right. And so,
But so it's been moved and seconded, but my thing, okay, so I think we're all in, maybe we're all in agreement to surplus them, but how are we going to do this so it doesn't become a major undertaking and then?
So we don't have all the answers to that. We have an analysis where if you do it on a wholesale basis, obviously you're going to get less money than if you were to sell it direct. And I don't know if you would meet the demand of the townspeople, who everybody I've talked to really wants one of them for their mudroom or their porch or their something. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're to do it on a retail basis, you have something like the plant sale, but with way better merchandise that doesn't want watering and sunshine and stuff. So that's not simple, but it is doable because it happens every year. And you need to have a lot of planning as to, where somebody's going to pick something up and how you're going to. But if you had a bunch of volunteers who were willing to do it, and I would volunteer, but it would have to be a big team to do this, that's another way to do it. And I don't have an answer.
We would set them down. We'd set them down all set out.
People could pick them out. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then if first come, first serve.
Open the door.
And we put one price on all of them, and they have to take them away there. We don't deliver, we don't do anything. And we might want to put a limit on them, so at first at least put a limit, so it's open to everyone. And not want the first person to buy 100 of them. Because
I think there ought to be one per address, if that's manageable.
And then you go around, at least then if there's more left, then you open it up again for people if they want to buy more.
So you're saying limit it to town residents only?
In the beginning, I would.
I think that would be fair. I mean, it's kind of a cool asset, and if people who live in town would like to have one, as opposed to somebody else coming in and buying up a parcel of them and then making a bunch of money, I think it would be better for people in town to get first dibs. Seems to me, at least.
But $200 seems like a lot of money to me.
Again, that's a retail price, and maybe I don't want to make up all the rules for this, and you might have some ideas about a better price. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Mike a couple of questions? So do we have? I understand it's a discretion of the selectmen to surplus thing.
Right.
Do we have to have an on?
No. If you're selling, if you're selling it,
get the highest price of value.
No. If you're selling them individually, then they're actually being surplus. Each one is a separate surplus by itself.
So it isn't the cumulative total.
It isn't the cumulative total. If you're selling them separately, if you were going to sell them in bulk, you would and then you'd have to get an estimated value for the bulk. If it was over the limits that you just set in your rules for a surplus property, then you would have to either bid them out or advertise them and do that. So as long as you're selling them individually, you can make up, because I'm assuming that the prices will be under $1,000 per chair. I hope so. Well, if it's over, then it's another problem. But I'm assuming that. Then you can just basically set whatever rules you want and sell them one at a time.
So can we legally discriminate? As in only people who live in West Newbury?
Yeah, the town's chairs, sure.
Okay. And we can put a limit on how many people can buy households. We can say one set per household the first day, and then.
We've already done it. The book sale for the library opened up West Newbury residents only sale for the first night, which was wonderfly popular, by the way. So
if there's 100, if we sell them for $50 each, there's 170. It's $8,500. Now, what can we designate that money for something, or does it have to go into the general fund?
It would have to go into the general fund. And then you could appropriate it. But town meeting would have to appropriate it. you couldn't designate it.
And I should say, that was actually part of the initial idea that was brought forward, and I checked that with Mike. The idea of earmarking the funds received for a specific purpose, but I asked the same question to Mike.
Otherwise, you know, it would be nice if we could go towards the permanent stabilization of that building, or, you know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could basically just keep a count, and then at town meeting, have an appropriation saying, hey, listen, we raised $5,000, you know, for this.
Take $5,000 and put it in the revolving fund.
Because that's where it's going. Yeah, basically.
What do you think, Bob?
Sounds good to me.
Do we want to try to make as much money as we possibly can, or do we want to offer these to the people of West Newbury for a piece of history? And it's actually a pretty good thing to do it during the bicentennial year. I just thought of that, actually. But
They're almost 100 years old. When were they
Yeah, 1923. Yeah.
Well, it was authorized in 22, but I think some of the chairs at least have to be by their label 100 years old. They have to be right about that.
So it can be the centennial chairs.
Yes, they could.
There you go, yeah.
Is there a way we can see these chairs? I don't know what they look like.
By appointment.
you sat in them many years. at
You've
town
sat
meeting.
in them.
So do you think $50 after your research? I know you're not trying to make the thing, but we have these kind of things. If we don't make a decision, it's going to go on forever. So you think that are we trying to make money? So if they're really worth 200 retail, whatever, are we trying to make money, or are we trying to give? We can't give them away. Are we trying to make give people so $50 a set? That's $25 a chair, and have it to West Newbury people, so we make some money, and you get tax people to give a little bit back because it was their money to begin with.
Even that doesn't sound unreasonable, no.
100 sounds unreasonable.
I agree, and the other thing is I just think they need to get out of there.
Right.
Because they're a
Well,
fire
that-
hazard.
Right. Well, there's a benefit just to moving them out, and never anybody ever again who, you know, who's on the DPW having to take their time and move the chairs.
We'd like to save them too.
Right.
We don't want them to go to the fire pit.
It'll be Crazy Wayne's chair sale.
Crazy Wayne's chair sale.
Take checks.
Only cash.
You know, the other thing I would say is you might want to consider, and again, I don't have any set opinion on this, but they are pretty cool, and maybe you want to have one somewhere in this building, because they're really pretty cool.
We should probably keep a few of them ourselves as a town. You're right.
So, do you really think that should be say the price for a two-seat setup was $50? Should the 4-seat also only be $50, or should it be based on say $25 a seat? So if it's a 4-seat,
Angus wants more.
In my capacity as finance director, I would say it should definitely be more.
But you know,
It should be more.
Can I say
I
that
think so.
they're really heavy
All right,
and
50
awkward.
and 100.
They're heavy and awkward, and I'm questioning how many people actually buy a 4-1 because to move that out, you need like 3 guys to
I
move
think
it out.
somebody
Really?
Just the only I'm saying is the 4-1 might not move quick.
No, but I think it's more of
They're
a
huge.
permanent thing in somebody's mudroom or somebody's thing. These things,
Yeah, or
when they
set
get
up
to
on a
their
front
home,
porch.
they're not putting these in their closet and taking them out of Thanksgiving for Uncle
No,
Jimmy
no.
and Aunt Susie to sit in. They're putting these as a piece in their house because they're gorgeous. Better than something you can ever buy now.
well, you can on Etsy and other things for a lot of money, but not with the kind of provenance and not with the kind of history that we have.
So when are you having this yard sale?
We'll need to do some coordination here.
So does anybody
Spring?
are there initials carved in any of them?
You know, I don't know. We don't know the condition, and some of them might be pretty rough. I really don't know, but the ones that we did see looked really nice.
Yeah.
So my motion then, can I amend my motion? I want to amend my motion that they're $25 a seat, just to make it easy.
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay, that's a good idea.
And so the bigger one could be 100. and then we do some type of coordination with the historical commission, and maybe some help with the town, or get some people to bring them all down, and then, you know, have it one Saturday and advertise it.
How about like sort of, you know, like late November, early December as Christmas time?
I think that could have appeal. I think we will need a band of volunteers to help with this, for sure.
I understand it seems a daunting task, but what are you looking for volunteers, just so I understand?
To help move them around, I don't know that
Get
it's
them off
fair
the
to.
stage.
So we have to
set
get them off the
up.
stage, we have to make sure there's nothing there, scheduled.
Right.
Right, and then we have to get them all down on the floor, and then we have to get that, and then the day of, we have to get people to take money and organize it, and, you know, people aren't gonna be lining up the night before camping out so they get the best ones.
Well, you know, people do appear at the plant sale an hour or more ahead
No,
of time. And
really?
they
Yes.
do, and they line up.
Yeah, they do.
And, you
Really?
know, the garden club has figured out that they need to be selling donuts and coffee to these people. So,
They
you
do?
know, it's, and then you need
And
to
it's one
figure
per,
out.
oh, part of my motion, I'm sorry, before I forget, I think Rick said this, which was a good idea. In the first round, would be one a residence, rather than like bringing your husband, your wife, and your kids, and then, and all of a sudden, the first,
Do you think people are actually gonna want?
I don't know, but who knows? Watch,
Well,
nobody
we're
will
not gonna
show.
be checking IDs, I don't think. I mean, if they wanna send the
We're getting
uncle
a
back to
little
get another one
carried
later,
away
we're
here.
not gonna know that.
But you know what I mean, so we're just trying to make it open to everybody, then
Yeah.
we could have a second round if they're still there. But hey,
Right.
now it's open, you wanna buy as many as you want, buy as many as you want.
So I could just say, if we do it during the colder months, December or whatever, DPW could definitely be a big part of it, because that's, if we're not doing plowing, we have more time. So if
Well,
it's not a
that
snow
would-
event, we could definitely send all 4 gentlemen there. So,
Okay, so, and we'll organize it.
We got a motion.
Okay, so what was our motion?
That we're gonna surplus them, and they're gonna be $25 each, and we're gonna work with the historical commission, to organize a time and a date, and they're gonna do that with Wayne.
And it's gonna be one per address. Obviously, there are gonna be people who try to play with that, and they'll probably succeed, but we'll at least try for one per address, at least initially, and then, you know, it's hard to say how they're gonna go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for digging into that. That was kinda cool.
I've wanted one of those for years,
Yeah.
all kidding aside.
I think
For years.
I think when I first, would they have been using those in the late '90s still, I wonder?
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think I remember sitting in.
It made the meetings go faster.
Right, because they're actually not all that.
They're so uncomfortable.
Well, you put a couple of cushions, I think it was great cushions.
Yeah, I remember
Yes.
that. I remember that.
Can we get this meeting going? Cause my.
Okay.
There's a few on the stage.
We'll put Glenn's face on it.
That's not very nice.
Okay, item K, we're getting through the alphabet here, sort of. Selection procedures for the designer of the, should it happen?
Okay, in connection with, what was it? The work for the car post, since it's going to most likely exceed the $300,000 for work and $30,000 for a design fee, we are subject to the designer selection law, and we have to have policies. Now, in 2011, the board did adopt designer selection policies in connection with the reconstruction of the Page School. We had to go through that process. The law has changed in some ways, so I thought it was an appropriate time now to basically reinstitute our designer selection laws. And so So then we can, you know, if the decision to do the major redevelopment of the car post goes forward, we're gonna have to go through this process because of the costs involved.
When I saw the number, that's exactly what we're doing now. So are we okay?
Yeah, because it has to be in a project that has both over $30,000 in design fees and over $30,000 in construction. $300,000. Yes, but if it is approved at town meeting, we will be faced with that.
We will be on the.
Yes.
So you want us to approve what's on this memo of this? town
No,
council?
I wanted to approve the draft that I put in.
That's on the memo of September 10th.
Right, the draft my memo, and then it's followed by the draft of the policies.
I would make a motion to approve the designer selection law, Mass General Law, 7C 44, formerly 38A and a half. So the whole thing changed.
Yes, exactly.
That's the bottom line, okay. Which requires municipalities and other local public agencies to adopt written designer selection procedures which must be used when contracting for design services for any building construction, reconstruction, alteration, remodeling, or repair project that has an estimated design fee of $30,000 or more and an estimated construction cost of $300,000 or more. These procedures must comply with the purposes and intent of the design selection law and must include certain required provisions.
Second.
Further discussion?
I'm gonna assume that the, just under $30,000 for the, preliminary work done on the car post, just coincidentally.
No, I think that there was no construction in association with that. That's more of a feasibility, that's to learn how much it was gonna cost us.
I saw somewhere here that was reference to feasibility and 30,000.
Yeah, there was, yeah. I mean, if you do it with regard to, that's gonna be possible.
Feasibility under 30 or something like
No, it won't apply to under 30.
But it's the and there that's critical,
Right.
so, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who was the second?
Me,
Second.
Glenn.
Glenn, all right.
Now we're gonna discuss the CPC proposal for the car post, rehabilitation and possible financing options.
So, should I begin?
Go ahead.
Okay, so you have the proposal that was submitted to CPC, that just went out yesterday, and it is posted on the website, to the Community Preservation Committee homepage, the complete proposal, and so that's been provided to the board. I have laid out for the CPC in consultation with town council the option that if they could make a recommendation this Thursday, or they could continue their consideration to a subsequent meeting if they so choose. It would still be, in that instance, it would still be within the board's authority to include an item on the warrant if you so choose. The town meeting could not take up the article without a favorable recommendation from the CPC, but the article could be put on the warrant to allow their process to continue. What I'm getting at is I'd rather this, personally, I would rather see the CPC extend their process rather than either feel that they have their back up against the wall time-wise, which it was not the intent, or to see them negatively recommend it because they feel they don't have enough time. So I wanted to make sure they were aware they have that option. With that said, the proposal I think is thorough. There's quite a lot of documentation there. I think our consultants did a terrific job, and I think we get a lot of value for the funds that were expended. And addition to the architectural work, the structural engineering, civil engineering, there was a hazard material evaluation and a systems analysis of mechanical and electrical. So it's really a very, very thorough evaluation that's been done. That did lead to an estimated price tag of right around $1.5 million. So that's obviously a very large amount of money and would comprise a very substantial share of the CPC funds that are currently in the bank. So knowing that, I took the liberty of beginning a conversation with our financial advisor who assists us with bond financing. I'm aware that other communities have leveraged CPC monies, borrowed against them, paid off the debt service over time with CPC revenue. So I did start that conversation with financial advisor last week. They ran a couple of hypothetical borrowing scenarios, which I included in the packet, which would show that if the town did decide to make this investment based on the assumed 20-year term at 2.5%, that would translate to roughly $100,000 a year of debt service if the town were to finance the improvements.
So what, and so people at home understand that would obligate the town to not lower the CPA percentage below the amount that could into the foreseeable future until that borrowing was paid off. So it could be lowered, but it couldn't be if the voters desired, but it could not be lowered so that the debt service could not be covered.
That's correct. And in assessing the town's capacity or the CPC capacity to support that kind of borrowing, I want to make clear that the bond council does not take into account the state match because that's uncertain, it's outside the town's control. So that the numbers that you see in here in terms of the CPA surcharge revenues, those are entirely the local surcharge that's within the town's policy control. I also want to clarify, Archie, to a question you asked me earlier. I did hear back from a financial advisor that both the principal and interest on bonds are payable from CPC revenues.
Okay. And the borrowing doesn't take into the account the way CPA is working, so that this is assuming that the tax rates, the assessable value of all the town didn't go up, which it's going to go up. This is sort of flat.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Wouldn't, so, okay, 10% has to be reserved for open space, 10% has to be reserved for affordable housing, 5% for administration. So whatever, so actually only 75% of any particular years would be available, of any particular years, you know, a maximum of 75% of any particular year's CPA funding would be available for paying the note. Correct?
That's correct.
Paying,
Yeah.
yeah.
You see that's reflected in there.
Oh, that is okay. I didn't see that.
So the 75% in column F is the 229,000. That's compared to the total annual of 327.
Okay.
That's just based on the actual FY19 number.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know.
And so then the projected debt service you can see is about 98.
And that should go up each year. The total that it's being subtracted from, it's not there. Yeah.
As a taxable.
Mr. Chairman?
Total tax.
Yes.
Did we discussed or have you researched maybe like a hybrid of taking hypothetically just say $500,000 out of CPA, $500,000 out of free cash, and then bonding $500,000 or something like that?
I haven't looked at free cash specifically, but yes, I did talk with a financial advisor about that. Potentially, you could pay a certain amount and borrow the balance. Whether you do that leveraging CPC exclusively or bring in town or non-CPC revenues, that would be a decision the town.
Well, I mean, you're still paying off the debt service from CPC.
Right. But that initial amount, the sources of that are entirely within the town's
Because over 20 years, we're paying $500,000 on debt. So if it's $100,000 a year, 20 years, it's
Yeah, you're
$2 million
paying,
bucks.
this
So
is
we're,
pretty significant.
Approximately, yeah.
yeah, all right, around $500,000. So obviously, with the application to the CPA, CPC, we need to have some type of funding source. That's part of their application. That might be, I don't know, I wouldn't mind seeing more of a hybrid rather than just, I know this is kind of new in the game, sorry, but late in the game, I should say. But maybe something from the free cash, something from free cash, and then the remainder of it being debt service paid off with CPA money.
How much,
Unless we have some big ideas for all this free cash we have.
Well, we have this school.
right. So, you know, I mean, we currently have, I don't recall what the amount was in the, historic portion of the CPA funds, and then we have obviously a pretty good chunk, you know, over $1 million in the money that could be applied to anything. I don't recall.
Unrestricted.
Excuse me?
The unrestricted.
Yeah, the unrestricted.
I'll pull up those numbers, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you, my thoughts are, this is a really huge amount of money for a project that we don't have a really defined use of the building. And if we want this to go forward at town meeting, I kind of like the idea of borrowing it over 20 years. We're saving this building for the future, and so every year we're putting a little bit towards it, rather than, say, the taxpayers of 2019 are taking a substantial hit on it when it's been it's been ignored for, it hasn't been taken care of for 100 years or whatever it is, and just the idea that we're instead of fixing it up over time, we're fixing it up all now, but we're spreading out the financial hit to people, in other words, the people living in town 2019, they would be hit more dramatically, just by, maybe there's other uses for the free cash and other uses for CPA money, and that if we're trying to save it for future generations, then future generations are going to be, the cost is being apportioned more in the future. That's just my thought. That's how I see it.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a
Yes.
clarification on that? Does then the vote every year for that CPC payment to the debt service, does that have to be taken a new vote every year for that payment? So you fight the battle?
You would have an appropriation vote, but because it's a bond, the treasurer would pay it even without an appropriation, because it's an obligation of the town, it would have to be paid.
I understand that, because then it would come out of raising free cash, or?
No, it would still come out of the CPC, if that's where the designated fund was.
Even with
And then if
Unless there was no money in the
Unless there was no
CPA.
money in it,
Yeah.
and then, but there should always be money, because it would always have to be taxed.
Yeah, so you don't have to take that vote
You will take the vote every year. What I'm saying is
So
that
if they vote no, what happens?
they still have to pay it.
I understand.
Kind of like
Where does money
like the
come from?
Dunn property.
From the CPC. It still comes from the CPC funds.
Like the Dunn property, Glenn. We pay that even though it's going to happen anyway.
No, I mean,
Well, it's kind of foolish to
the-
be taking the vote.
the idea
If you vote
is
no,
that
you still have to take the money out of there and pay it.
in they didn't want a circumstance where people would never lend bonds if the determination of whether to pay the bond was subject to a town meeting or city council vote every time there was year. So
No, I like your answer, but I thought it
what
was
was it the
something.
Massachusetts legislature has put in place is that if there's a bond obligation, the treasurer is obligated to pay it. And if
Well, I understand, okay, I understand that portion of it.
Mhm.
But is the treasurer obligated to pay it out of the CPA fund?
CPC, if it's CPC funds, it goes under the CPC funds. And the thing is that what happens is that the assessors have to assess that amount in it and dedicate it to make sure that that bond payment is there. That's how it works, is that essentially it's not so much, is it every time the tax bill is appropriations are being made or the assessment, they will have to include that amount in there and assess it.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
Then I'll go along with them.
you know, I guess my gut is to pay some portion of it with available funds up, but not, you know, obviously not the entire thing, but, that's my gut.
My recollection is that not even counting FY19 monies, which are collecting another 200, I guess we haven't gotten the match yet for FY19, doesn't the state determine the match for last year around this time?
Right, right.
That and free cash certification come in, both of those come
Right,
out
so
in the fall sometime.
And so not counting that amount of money, which is already placed, I thought we were like at 2.2 million.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah, for the funds. So, I mean,
And then you're anticipating around another $200,000.
Did you happen to find that?
I did, yeah.
So what's in the historic?
So the historic is, and this is as of June 30th.
Yeah.
And this nets out funds that are encumbered but not necessarily spent. So this is what's actually available, not what's in the bank. Historical is about 177, and the CPC undesignated is 1,514,000, and then the CPC reserve is 267,000. So that all.
And how much free cash do we have? But it's not certified yet, correct?
Right, it was 1.18 as of June 30th.
So that 1.18 at June 30th.
So
that
not
means,
including, what will be added for the.
yeah. So that takes out all the expenses of last.
Correct.
Annual town meeting.
That's right.
But then, and annually it goes up around what, 500,000?
I would defer to you on that. It's just my second year here. So.
Yeah.
Archie, I like your
1.1 and then
your reasoning about, you know, because it's gonna be realized by people in the future, having, you know, extending the payback into the future, as opposed to putting it all on, you know, taxpayers of 2020 or 2019, 2020. But at the same time, I guess, it seems we have these funds available that we've been accruing. It makes sense to use some.
How
of
much
them.
you thinking, Rick?
$500,000 maybe out of.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Out of the existing funds. I don't know, but.
Is it, Angus, is it harder to borrow, to go to all the trouble of borrowing the money for a smaller amount?
It is.
Like the closing costs and stuff are gonna be the same versus how much, you know, it's, you see what I mean?
I
Yeah.
do, and that's, so in the borrowing that we're working to line up for the water projects, that's 1.1 million. And while we would be on track to close that later this calendar year, if we so choose, our financial advisor has basically been asking, are there other projects we can batch this with? Because 1.1 is seen as a small bond issue. And so
Really?
if you can generate, if you can spread those fixed costs across larger, amount, is more efficient. So, if this were to go forward, town meeting were to approve it, there may be a reason to delay the borrowing for the water project to allow it to be batched into a bigger
Huh.
issue.
Okay.
One advantage of going the way you suggested, of bonding at all, is that, $97,000 or whatever the now we have 97.5, well, whatever the number is, today is going to represent less value in the future. I mean, the cost of the money is going to be, or the value of the money.
In 20 years, $97,000 is going to be $80,000
Exactly.
at
So-
least,
so
or less.
So
Yeah.
the impact, the financial impact of that payment will be less in future years than it will be now.
That's a good point.
Which reinforces what you were suggesting. But it just seems to me that we have this money we've been setting aside, and we've been setting aside with the intention to use it sometime. So maybe this is the time to use some of it.
Angus, your total did not include anything that we might otherwise be using at this special town meeting, though, right?
Correct. Yeah, it didn't include the addition of free cash, which will need to be certified, as well as any subtraction that would result from certain of the warrant articles.
That's what I mean. So let's just think off the top. So what's
Or the other CPC articles.
so we've got so that people are aware, there are other claims on CPC money that have not
Been voted on.
haven't been voted on. Yeah.
Articles
So
that are gonna be coming
right.
up.
So those would be. Let's just.
Well, what are they?
Let's.
Was it the housing authority?
The housing is.
Which they wouldn't come out of, they're looking for
That
their
was,
money,
that
right?
was what, 40-something
That was
thousand?
360.
The 360 or 370, something like that.
So is that solely coming out of housing? Affordable housing?
There's not enough just in housing, so that.
They'd have to use some of the unrestricted. And what's our funding for the, Angus had said those had already been.
So are they gonna be looking for, I know part of the application process is for us to find out how we're gonna fund it. Could they have their own suggestions on Thursday night? I would rather not try to be so strict. I would like to, my whole thing about this is that $1.5 million is a lot of money. But I think we owe it to the town to at least, we got to this point now, we spent $30,000 on a feasibility study. It's time that we put this to rest one way or another. As in if the town wants to do something about it, or if it just wants to sit there and decay, and it's gonna cost us more money, and then end up not doing something, and then the end result will be, you're gonna need just to tear it down.
I'm trying to make it more
Palatable?
saleable, yeah.
So, I want to go forward, obviously, but the Community Preservation Committee, they're the ones that, if it doesn't come out of that committee, nobody gets to vote on it. So this is, I guess we could go, we can say to them, or Angus on Thursday night, that there has been, this is probably, there are discussion within the Selectmen to do it different ways, just bond the whole thing, or pay some of it out of some community preservation money and or free cash. I don't know, it doesn't have to be all community preservation committee money.
But Glenn, why do you object to spreading it out?
I had to get some water and use the men's room, so I didn't hear Angus's answer. I don't mind spreading it out, but we ended up paying $500,000 worth of debt service.
But like, I guess you were out,
Yeah.
but Rick made a point too, that the cost of money in the future is, with inflation, if we pay $97,000 today, is worth $87,000 15 years from now, or $80,000. So it's
What are
cheaper.
we getting?
They're assuming 2.5%.
Okay, I agree with that, Rick. You're right, because the cost, I mean, for the 2.5%, yeah.
I still think we ought to use some of the available funds, though. I mean, but I don't know, it gets complicated because there's the issue of weighting of bonding costs and,
But I think it's more sellable if we use some money out of it, that's my point. Why? I don't know why you think it's sellable the other way.
There's a lot of other things that people, I don't think people want to spend all the money on one item.
Neither do I. That's why I said a hybrid. I mean, I could be totally off base, but I would think it would be more palatable to people to say, yeah, we have this. I mean, some people would say, you have all this money sitting in this fund, 1.5 million, almost 300,000. We're going to get another $250,000 in. Why don't we spend some of that? Why do we have to pay all this? Oh, we are. We're going to hybrid it by total cost is $1.5 million. We're going to give $500,000 out of some whatever, and then we're going to bond $1 million with CPC money. Do we have to decide that now?
It is kind of interesting that the cost that would be paid by CPC money doesn't reflect any increase in tax because it's already baked in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's money that, assuming that we continue to go forward with CPC.
Well, you would have to.
Well, right.
Yeah,
But just assuming that it's already baked in, so it's tax that's already baked in.
That's a good point, yeah.
In terms of, to your question, Glenn, of whether that has to be decided now, the answer is no, and Mike can elaborate on that in terms of the form of the article could speak to different sources.
Well, I mean now as in tonight.
Right.
We can do it at our next meeting.
Yep.
And this might we might do something in the CPC
I mean,
and say, we're only improving it with this.
Yeah.
Right?
Again, just like, you could have the motion, have all the different alternatives. I mean, not the motion, but the article. And then, really, the determination of how you'd want to fund it would be really only final until the motion on town meeting floor.
And then, like Angus said too, these numbers don't reflect the matching of the state. So these numbers aren't even really true. So the obligation on the obligation and the burden on our taxpayers from the CPC surcharge on their tax base is actually on this bond thing is going to be less because there's going to be more state money. This is only our money because we can't secure how much matching funds we're going to get, and we've done pretty well with that.
Well, we can't guarantee that 10 years from now there even is a state match. That's up to the legislature.
There's a dedicated funding source now, but you're right.
And they've also taken a very conservative approach of assuming a level revenue, which in reality would go up with the increase in valuation.
But the other thing is also with CPC that more communities have joined, and so the pie is being cut in smaller pieces. The city of Boston joined, and they hadn't been in, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
I make a motion that we need a motion.
Yes, we do.
To put this application forth
To the CPC.
To the CPC. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. potential warrant articles
On
for the
warrant
special town
articles,
meeting.
the supplemental one you gave us,
Yes.
does that have everything in it?
It has everything I've received.
Okay, so the stuff, you had stuff in our regular packet too, but then the supplemental one that you gave us, this is everything.
Everything that I've received.
So, yeah, so it's not stuff in here and this.
Correct. That's right. I put it all into a separate packet.
Perfect, thank you for doing that.
And part of why Wayne, well, really, the reason Wayne's sticking around is in case there's questions on his. I told him this is not the night that you're voting a recommendation of the warrant articles. Preliminarily, if you do have anything you want to ask me.
Wayne, is there anything that you want to tell us? Maybe that might be a better way of saying it.
No, I just put in 3 requests, I believe, one for Salter truck, put a salt on the back of the smaller truck for us. A tree article request for high hazard trees, which the memo is pretty self-explanatory. And I believe the third one is for the library, for air quality.
Wayne, I had one, just lack of knowledge, a question about the truck. Is this being a light truck, is it a good truck to be using as a salter? Is it so light that it's not gonna be, gonna be sliding around? It wouldn't be a good use, wouldn't be a good vehicle to use in conditions that need salting?
It's standard, so you could put a salter on a 1 ton. So on our medium-sized trucks, that's what most cities do because the streets are too small. They're on a 1 ton truck. We're lucky we could put them on big monster trucks, but we don't have a small one. So it is standard practice to put a smaller salter on a 1 ton truck because you get down smaller areas, smaller
No, I
streets.
guess I meant, is the 1 ton truck a good vehicle to be using in the snow? Is what
Yeah,
I mean.
well, we use it to plow, so it's fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And this will be a versatile truck, what are you gonna do with it when it's not standing?
Well, you're just taking care of the salter itself. It's just, I'm asking just for the salter.
Say it again?
I'm just asking for the salter itself, the back. So the truck is still existing truck. We use it for everyday operation. So we put the salter on December 1st.
And you don't need a CDL
No,
license to drive this?
we do not.
And you
That's,
don't have a Salter that's non-CDL?
that's correct.
Okay, gotcha.
So is that's what, F-250?
The 350s and 450. I think we have a 350 and a 450.
Okay.
So allow myself to salt, which I cannot right now, and allow John salt if he has to. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have any questions on any of these articles? Should we have any questions on any of these articles, Angus?
No, as you know, the warrant doesn't close till the end of the week, so this is kind of a preview. It's not the time that you're being asked to vote recommendations on the articles. So this is really just to share with you what I have, and to, if there's questions, I welcome them. I probably won't have the answers because a lot of this I just got in late last week, so I'm basically just the pass-through. But if you do have questions you want to give to me, I can make sure that the article sponsors are prepared when they do come before you looking for a recommendation.
Wayne, one question about the trees. Are some of these trees things that could be paid for by Comcast or National Grid or something? If they're a hazard to the wires, is that something, why should the town do it if we could get the utilities to do it? Is there some overlap there or not?
So I know they've been in town a few times, so they do their observations and check, see what trees they do, and they come and propose trees. I think Gary said they were here a couple of years ago proposing some trees. So they come on their own and they look at the worst ones to do. They don't want the towns to call them and try to get a free tree removed. Obviously, that's not their intent. So they look at the ones that are leaning towards their power line. So they're actually more proactive than probably we have been in the past, because they're trying to not have this happen, have a tree fall down. They have not approached me since I've been here yet for tree removals, but they're not going to look at doing 250 trees. Obviously, you might have a handful of them that they recognize overhang the lines. That was not the majority. Usually, it's above the primary line is what they're concerned with. Anything below the primary line, they don't care, even if it's for a local house or a service. I was looking at it as a whole, as in every wire is just as important as the top wire is. So that's how I did the audit based on that.
Good. In the interest of saving trees, now that we're talking about it, I don't need, if you give us these articles again, I don't need to give us all these, just give me what comes in. You know what I mean? Don't give me a whole brand new packet from the beginning again.
Okay.
I have this, I don't need.
Oh, you're saying okay.
Yeah,
Not share the same information.
Yeah, more people, more of these said you might come into the end of the week.
Yep.
So I'll keep this, but just add to this. Don't bring me a whole new one.
Good, good.
Okay, thank you.
So we do have a meeting a week from today, and by that point the warrant will have closed. So as I said, transmittal memo I intend to put together at the end of this week. Anything new that may come in, anything additional that may come in on a couple of these came in as kind of, here's an idea, but without a specific proposal. So that'll be before your week from tonight, and then it's going to be, with some exceptions like CPC articles, it's going to be largely up to this board what is on the warrant. It's your warrant. So nothing, at least so far, has been submitted as a citizen petition initiative. So as something comes in from a department head or from a resident, that's fully within the board's discretion as to whether you put it on the warrant.
So if you want to relay a question, I have a question about the Housing Authority warrant article that they say they are going to apply for the bathroom remodeling portion of their request to DHCD, but the amount of money that DHCD actually has for projects looks like it's relatively limited. And it said that 3 or 4 housing authorities got money in the last go-round. So basically, they're saying they're going to ask them for the money, but what is the actual chance of their succeeding in that? It looks like it's not. It looks like the pool of money that's available is very small, and there's a lot of cities and towns in Massachusetts, and if there's only 3 or 4 that got it last go around, I just wonder if they're telling us, oh, we're going to get half the money from the state. I don't know if that's really true.
I'll talk to the executive director this week, and as you know, Rick represents this board on the CPC, so I know he can bring that question to Thursday's meeting as well. But I'll talk to Tracy and make sure she's prepared to answer that.
Somewhere I saw how much was available for this round of funding from the DHCD, and it didn't seem like a lot.
That wasn't, you didn't see that in here, you saw that?
No, I saw it in there, yeah. There's a lot of numbers in here though, but yeah. In other words, the total cost was like $750, and we were going to pick up like half of it, and they were going to think. Basically, I'm wondering, okay, if that fails, and it said that the funding application for that was sometime in like January. If that fails, are they going to come back and ask for the other half from us?
I'm seeing the number that I think Archie referenced. It's toward the back of the summary.
Yeah, actually, I think I see, it says in the second round of awards, DHCD intends to grant up to $15 million for 2 to 4 projects at eligible developments. The grant's limited to a maximum amount of $80,000 per housing unit. So, it's, I mean, we're tiny compared to the numbers they're talking about, but still we're, So this is $15 million, so what West New, or what the Housing Authority would be applying for would be, like 2.5% of the total that DHCD is.
Well, that's true,
Yeah.
but we're also, they're gonna say, well, West
Right,
Newbury's a
right,
rich
right,
community versus
right,
Brockton
right,
or something like that,
right,
yeah. Okay, next item is, request for authorization to waive the 15-day notice and confirmation process to authorize the town manager to appoint the assistant to the town manager and finance department position. I would make a motion to
So moved.
do that.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item O, to designate a member of the Board of Selectmen to approve AP warrants on a temporary basis. Angus, do you want to? I would volunteer to do that.
Make a motion that Archie is the Selectmen's representative to approve AP warrants on a temporary basis. Do we need to have dates, or is it just?
Temporary basis.
Got it. I need a second.
I'll second. I guess we can have some discussion.
Yeah.
So I understand the reason for this. I think it's a great idea. I actually had, spoke with Angus last week, and I would, this is one of the problems with a 3-person versus a 5-person select board, is I would actually love to sit down with Archie's doing it to understand what's involved. Not that I want to do it. I think you'll do a great job. But I've never done it, and you guys understand it, and this is, for me, this is one of those pieces of information I've never been exposed to yet.
But you can do that. You can do that, as long as there's not deliberation. You guys, should I approve this or not approve this? And you can, I wouldn't approve that, Archie.
I just like to sort of sit in on it for
like
a
here's
meeting.
why I don't like this one. That wouldn't be deliberation, right? Would it? It would.
Well,
I wouldn't be agreeing or disagreeing. I would just be watching. But right. No, I understand. It would be
There's no
deliberation.
deliberation, then there's not a meeting.
Right.
A deliberation is going back and forth
Yeah.
also. Deliberation is just not one individual. He's observing what he's doing.
But it could lead one to wonder. It could lead somebody to
That,
question
yes,
it.
but as long as you're just observing,
Always post a meeting.
or if you're observing,
You could post a meeting, that's true.
or you could have,
That's
We can
true.
invite people
Yeah.
in to come on in and share the misery.
or you could
That is
as long
true.
as he's observing from 3
They have to
feet.
bring their own stick for beating themselves.
But we'd have to have minutes.
The minutes. would
You
be
guys work on it.
Being
One
approved,
sentence.
we approve the warrant.
I really don't think. I honestly don't believe that anybody's going to complain or put an open meeting law complaint in if you're just observing something so you can be a better selectman and there's no deliberation. And as long as you do it from 3 feet away from Archie, it's legal.
Is that the official rule, the 3-foot rule? Okay.
All kinds of that,
Okay, we could make it,
You guys
we
figure
could
that out.
make it an
Figure it
official
out.
meeting.
Figure
Yeah,
it
that's totally
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Okay,
easy.
Well,
that's the way to do it.
my only concern about that is I don't want any implication that a majority vote is needed, because obviously the timeliness of processing the warrants is
Right.
very important. So that's part of the idea of having a single designate.
If Rick can't make it, Archie's doing it anyway.
Yeah,
Right,
so.
right.
Right.
so you
Okay.
have a vote.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm abstaining.
Oh, right.
Well, I don't want to vote for myself.
Oh, I just didn't hear what you said. I would agree with that. Yeah, that's fine. Make a motion to approve the minutes of September 3rd, 2019, August 19th of 2019, August 5th of 2019, June 27th of 2019, and June 24th of 2019.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Somewhere, the building inspector's name was spelled wrong, but I can't remember where it went. Okay, town manager updates, update on staffing transitions and possible interim town accountant.
I'd like to share publicly what this board is aware of, and probably many others are as well. But Lori Sabiak, thank you for notice. She's accepted a position with the school district, regional school district, which was her background. And so obviously that's, we want to thank her for her service to the town and wish her every success in her future endeavors. But it obviously creates a real challenging situation for my office, where we've already been short-staffed for a bit. So we are in discussions about lining up coverage on an interim basis, and we will have that in place. And we have also posted the town accountant business manager position to MMA last week, and have already started to receive applications on that. So that's part of the basis for the request that the board took up just a few minutes ago in terms of signing the warrants for a period of time. It's just 2 hours or so less per week on my desk, which is welcome in this not only short staffing, but also a very, very busy time of year with setting the tax rate and officially closing out FY19 and so forth. So Lori's last day will be the 26th of the month, which is toward the end of next week. And so we will have interim accounting services, but I'll look to all parties to show some patience during the period of short staffing.
Good. I reiterate the, wish you well.
And we're also, we're ongoing with interviews for the assistant, the town manager and finance department position. So, and with the board's vote early tonight, that's terrific, and I thank you for that, because that allows me, once we do have the right candidate, we can make an offer, and because it won't be conditional on a subsequent board vote, it will allow that person to have certainty that once the offer is made, it will be binding on the town, which allows them to begin the process of transitioning and getting here as soon as practicable.
Good.
Item T.
So there's a number of materials in front of you, and I won't go through them in detail in light of the late hour, but I just wanted to kind of keep us all focused, and obviously we're doing a lot of different things, and so I have been sharing on a periodic basis a pretty thorough list of all of the many initiatives that are ongoing, but I wanted to just kind of set out what I see as kind of the short list, which, as you'll see, is not even that short. These are kind of the absolutely mission critical things that on a day-to-day basis I try to keep my focus on, but constantly pulled in other directions. So I'll just read through the list. Finalizing the FY20 tax rate recap model prior to the closing of the special town meeting warrant. The key issue there, of course, being in a position to recommend to this board an amount for free cash transfer to ensure that we get the tax rate that we are aiming for FY20. So that's, we've got a meeting later this month or later this week with DOR on that. The second item is to recruit, hire, and train the new staff position, which is the assistant to the manager in the finance department, which is very crucial and will take a lot of day-to-day work off my desk immediately, including things like the website updates and the social media postings, and also the preparation of the board meeting packets, not the preparing the content, but actually putting it all together and collating everything and all of that. And there were 16 copies of the car post application and all of that printing and collating and so forth. It would be very good to have an assistant for that. The third item is to recruit and hire an interim town accountant. Fourth is to recruit and hire a new town accountant business manager. Fifth is continued participation on the school building committee along with Selectman Kemper, and also the coordination with the administration on the school financing. And as you know, there's some ongoing work on a MOU with the school district, which is very important to finalize. Sixth is the financing for the well field and the water tank. That's well underway, but is kind of mission critical. Seventh is the OPEB valuation, continuing to work with the vendor and coordinate staff. That's something that the town accountant has taken the primary lead on, and with that transition, I'll need to pick up more of that.
Angus, let me ask you about that. Shouldn't there be just sort of like, we just fill in last 3 years or whatever, that just, shouldn't the format be, okay, well, this number changed from the previous report, but the questions can't be too different.
No, and I think we're really in good shape with that. We provided the kind of census.
Except we have a new vendor.
Yeah, there's a new vendor, and they're great. Part of why we went with them is they're actually better attuned to a small town than perhaps our former vendor was. So I think it's fine, but as you know, until it's done, it's not done.
Yeah.
And so it's in terms of my own capacity. If I get an email from the OPEB vendor, that's pretty much immediately goes to the top of the list. But I do think we're in very good shape, and I think Lori has served us well in terms of the work that she has done on that. The eighth item is a little redundant, but it's the agreement with Pentucket on the building permit and inspection fees. That issue alone probably had a dozen meetings in the last 2 weeks, meetings and calls. So that's kind of a sub-bullet with the school project, but it's really complex, and we're getting to clarity, but it's as you know, we've been working on that since about the first of the year, and we're honing in. The ninth is the annual report of the stormwater MS4. That's due at the end of this month. Thankfully, Wayne's done the lion's share of that, but it goes in under my signature, and I don't sign off on something if I'm not comfortable with it, so it is something that implicates my time. 10th item is the continued work on the Middle Street Bridge, the design selection, the memorandum of understanding on the cost share with Newbury Port, as well as the upcoming public meeting a week from tonight. 11th is to work with the architect and the structural engineer for the fall town meeting proposal on the soldiers and sailors. And finally, to work with the Selectmen, Greenbelt, and other parties to finalize language for the conservation restriction and agricultural preservation restriction for Brown Spring Farm and River Road. Most of that doesn't fall to me, but again, on it, I mean, Mike and I are pretty much, either between our conversations with one another or calls with Greenbelt. That's something that's probably several times a week over the last couple of months, and that will continue until that's done. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to make sure that it's front and center to this board of what the short list is, and there will be times, and there have been times that I have to say no to things, and so I want you to understand why. And as far as the longer list, you have that in your packet, and there's a lot there too. So.
Do we have a copy of your itemized list?
It's not it's this thing.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to.
There's the transmittal memo.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I guess I haven't found that in here. Okay.
It's right before. You're a couple of pages back. Right.
It's on the back. I had a hard time finding it too.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, I threw a lot of paper at this board.
So Angus, how can we help? Because sometimes in these meetings, we just don't understand your daily stuff, and then then just stuff happens during the day too that you have to take care of and manage the town. So we have to be very sensitive to throwing more stuff at you without making sure that it can be undone, and or other boards and committees. Because it always seems simple in these meetings, but we get to go home and not have to, deal with it all. So is there a way that we can help, or just be more understanding? Or
Well, as I've told you, I think this board's been, this particular board has been terrific to work with. I think we've got a great line of communication that's really been, it's not just at the meetings, it's between the meetings. So I try to do the best I can to make sure that my workload is clear and transparent to you. So I think, the step you took a couple of minutes ago of delegating Archie on the AP warrants, that's a very tangible thing. That's not a big item, but it kind of is. It's like, if you have a cup of water and the cup of water is just at the crest of being full, one drop will make it overflow. So it's when you're at that capacity level, anything you can take out of that is a plus. So that was a plus.
It was a plus for Archie too, because he misses it. He's, I think, the only person who really loves looking through those things.
I think, I think there's only so much, that any of us can do.
You gonna buy him some post notes?
Yeah. I want a lot of posters.
So, there's nothing anyone can do that can control the pace of life. I mean, there's insurance filings, there's workers' comp, there's personnel turnover, there's things that come up and will continue to come up. So I think the main thing I would look for, not just from this board, but also the other boards and committees, as you mentioned, Glenn, because that is certainly part of the workload, is just some understanding that when we say no, it's not that we're sitting there with our feet on the desk and, oh, I gotta, hit my golf game Friday afternoon. That's not the culture of this place.
Oh, get rid of that person.
Everything we possibly can to keep this place running. And so if we say no, it's because one of two things: we either actually can't do it, or to do it means bumping something else out. And my determination as town manager is objectively not either more important or more urgent. Sometimes things.
Or maybe make a decision, make a recommendation saying, well, yes, but this needs to be done by whomever. And if that person wants to take it on, or that board or committee wants to take it on, and they have the personnel, not just putting it on us, they can do it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's a lot. It's quick to come up with an idea, to actually execute it and to do it properly. And to sweat the details, take some time. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. As I have said before, at any time, if you have questions about any of the items on the longer list and where we're at with different things, by all means, send them my way.
You.
Item U.
Okay, item U. The memo kind of speaks for itself. It basically just sets out some of the key dates that we need to hit with Department of Revenue on closing out FY19, certifying free cash, establishing the tax rate. So I've been working closely with Lori so that she can do what she can do before she leaves and leave us in a position to pick up going forward. I had already set up a meeting for later this week with our DOR representative. It's just a kind of good practice to get everyone around the same table and make sure everyone's clear who's doing what and when. So we had already scheduled that. Obviously, with Lori's announcement, that takes on greater urgency and importance. So I'm really looking at that as a very important meeting, especially on this tax rate recap model. We did that last year right around this time, and that was the first time, at least in the modern era, that the finance director had done that in setting the tax rate. It's a complex model, and we built it in the spring, and we just need to update it with some current information in terms of new growth and estimated FY20 assessed values. But going through that with a fine-tooth comb before Thursday with Lori side by side is really important, so that when our DOR rep is here, we can go through it with her, make sure she doesn't see anything that's off. So that's I wanted to make you aware, because in the next couple of days, the more time I can sit there with my green eye shade on, as they say, the accountants with the green eye shades, is really high value time at this time of year with the tax rate.
Cool. Have fun.
Last year, I think it was like a Friday at 10 or 11 at night that I was talking to Lori on the phone, and this year I don't want it to come to that. So. And finally, on item V, that's just informational, so that we're looking to put that state earmark to use in the relatively near term to make some accessibility improvements out of the playground, and there is some public interest, citizen interest in looking at some potential broader improvements. If so, those would be kind of scoped out over the winter and brought forward next spring. So I'll continue to keep you apprised of this issue.
But we want to utilize what
Money.
what was
Yes.
appropriated by the legislature,
Yep,
yeah.
that's top priority, so
Yeah.
we're actively working on that.
Under the assignments, follow-up meeting assignments, place things on future agendas. Noonan's. They're provided all these hanging plants in town at no cost, and maintain them and watered them at no cost.
They provided them at no cost, really?
They provided them at no cost, and they're maintaining them at no cost.
Okay, wow.
Because they're a local business in town. We've gotten so many nice comments about it. I'd like to make some type of, maybe we can put it on our next agenda. I meant to do it last meeting, and then I forgot. But,
To thank, publicly thank
public
them.
thank them and send them a letter or something like that in appreciation of their being a good partner in town or being a good, neighbor.
And it certainly is a nice addition, yeah.
Oh, it's terrific. And they're out there on Sundays watering these things.
Yeah, that's great.
So just to do that, if we could do that,
Okay.
send them a letter, we could sign. That's all. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.